You ready? Good afternoon, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen and our counselors. Today is the 45th meeting of the 24th Council, and I will call this meeting to order. I believe that all of our counselors are present or will be present within a few minutes. I didn't have anyone call to say that they weren't joining us today. So with that, we will take a moment of silence. And I was looking to see if Councillor Harris is on also. Has he joined us yet? There he is. Councillor Harris, we're going to take a moment of silence, and I'd ask if you would lead us in Pledge of Allegiance in English. And is Councillor Pena on? Councillor Pena, would you lead us in Spanish? And counselors, I would like to dedicate our moment of silence to all of our veterans, since this is Veterans Appreciation Month. And I especially want to dedicate the moment of silence to our active and non-active veterans, but more particularly, I would like to dedicate this to people who have returned from service and are experiencing mental illness. So if you'll join me in that moment of silence for just a moment, please. Thank you, counselors, and thank you to the public. Councillor Harris.
Thank you. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Councillor Harris, we can't hear you.
It says I'm unmuted. You can't hear me?
Can you hear him? Okay, I couldn't hear him.
Can you hear me now?
Go ahead, Councillor Harris. I'm sorry.
Okay. You can hear me now? Okay. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Pena.
Madam President, I'll be doing the pledge in Spanish for Councillor Pena, if that's okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios indivisible con libertad y justicia para todos.
Thank you, Councillor Sena. We appreciate that. Councillor Harris. So before we start our meeting, I would like to read some information into the record. As noted in a press release from our office on Friday, posted on our website and noticed on our published council agenda, this meeting has special procedures and is being held via Zoom video conference. Members of the public, city staff, and the media have the ability to view this meeting live through 4 different platforms: GOV-TV on Comcast Channel 16 and GOV-TV website, YouTube, and Zoom webinar. These live streams can be accessed from most smartphones, tablets, or computers. Also, this meeting is closed captioned, and you may enable the closed captioning service on your television or device at this time. For those watching on the live stream, thank you for joining us this afternoon. The video recording of this and all past council meetings will also remain available for viewing at any time on the City Council's website. Council staff is available via telephone if members of the public need assistance finding the videos online. Please call 768-3100 for assistance during the business hours, which are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The council is accepting live general public comments today, as well as any written comments. Written comments received by 1 p.m. were distributed to all of our counselors in advance of today's meeting. And so all counselors should have received all of that information. So with that, counselors, we will move on to item number 3, which is proclamations and presentations. And there are none today. And then we will move on to item number 4, which is economic development discussion. We will dispense with that since there is none today. So with that, counselors, we will move on to general public comments. And I'm going to read into the record before we have our public comments, just some information for those of you who are joining us for live public comment. We want to welcome you, first of all, for joining us this afternoon. We also received written comments distributed to all of our counselors today, as I mentioned in advance of our meeting. Members of the public will be able to address the council if they have signed up for live public comment per the instructions published on the agenda and on our website on Friday. Speakers will be moved into the meeting room 2 at a time. They will remain muted with their camera off until they are called upon to speak, at which point they can turn on their camera, unmute themselves, and will have 1.5 minutes to provide comments to the council. After that, they will again be muted and return to be an attendee of the Zoom webinar. So here are the public comment ground rules. Each participant has 1.5 minutes to present. Comments are to be addressed to the counselors only through the council president. Any disruptive conduct will result in removal from the Zoom webinar. Mr. Moya, how many individuals do we have signed up to speak?
Madam President, we have 11 people signed up to speak
11
today.
people? All right, with that, Mr. Moya, would you commence, please?
Thank you, Madam President. Our first speaker is Lindsay Cutler. Cutler, please feel free to turn your video on, unmute yourself, and your time will begin when you start speaking.
Good afternoon, President and members of the council. My name is Lindsay Cutler, and I'm an attorney with the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty. I'd like to speak about the proposed amendments to the tax preparer ordinance today. Last year, we strongly supported the city's adoption of this ordinance because it filled a really important gap for consumer protections, particularly for low-income working families who are receiving a large portion of their taxes back at tax time through the Working Families Tax Credit. Unfortunately, as such, working families are far too often the target of predatory tax preparation businesses and financial products. And working families that receive the Working Families Tax Credit make up 1/4 of all New Mexican taxpayers. These are really vital credits, but too often they are drained out by high-cost tax preparers. We stand in opposition to the proposed changes in front of the council today because it guts the ordinance and the meaningful consumer protections for working families and for families across our city. For instance, the original ordinance required tax preparers to disclose fees and costs before services, and the proposal removes that requirement, making disclosures meaningless. It also significantly weakens the meaningful private right of action in the original ordinance, and gives a consumer virtually no remedy to address some of the really well-documented problems with the tax preparation industry. So for these reasons, we ask that you vote in opposition to the proposed changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Grace Allison. Ms. Allison, please feel free to turn your video back on, unmute yourself, and your time will begin when you start speaking.
Good afternoon. I've represented hundreds of low-income New Mexicans in income tax controversies with the IRS, many of which could have been avoided with competent, affordable tax preparation. One of my clients was a single mother of 2 toddlers. Her gross income was $2,790. Thanks to child-based tax credits, she should have received a $1,200 IRS refund. You can imagine what that $1,200 meant to her family. Sadly, she received less than $600 from her tax preparer franchise, which took $568 for preparation and $50 as an assisted refund fee. Your ordinance is intended to give consumers rights to know fees in advance, to know how fees are calculated, to know their preparer's qualifications, to have personal documents returned to them. But rights that will not be enforced are not rights. H&R's Block's proposed amendments would eviscerate your ordinance by reducing potential damages from $500 per violation to a flat 100, terminating rights to injunction and private action, transforming the certificate of compliance into a statement of good intention. Staying the enforcement of the tax preparer's ordinance does not serve Albuquerque well.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tara Bernheisel. Tara, please feel free to turn your video on, unmute yourself, and your time will begin when you start speaking.
Okay, hi. Sorry, let me turn on my video. Okay, my name is Tara Bernheisel, and my public comment is about the housing situation here in Albuquerque. I've been trying to get housing since 2016. I'm on disability income, and it's been extremely difficult. I tried working with HopeWorks recently, and I've been told that it is very hard for me to get these, that I don't qualify for a lot of stuff. And I'm on disability. My income is like 800 and something. At one time, when I was really, really needing housing, and APD sent me to Heading Home. At that time, I was getting $514 in income, and I was paying almost $1,000 to the visitation center where I was seeing my kids to try to get custody back of them. So it was like impossible. So I would like to see help for people in the city that need help, that I don't know, like, we deserve to have independence being on disability. And you cannot be independent if you're living with somebody having, not being able to make your own decisions and be able to live in a home for you and your children, like, without being able to afford it. And I've just found out it's been really hard. And in 2019, I spoke at City Council, and somebody from Community Services, his name is
Thank you,
Gilbert.
Tara. Your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara.
Wait,
Counselor Gibson has a question, and I believe also Counselor Senna.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Madam President. I would like to hear this woman continue with her message, please.
I'll give you another minute, ma'am.
Okay, and I'm trying not to cry. Mr. Gilbert Ramirez, I believe his name is, he offered me help in 2019 and just never really went through it. In 2019, in I think it was November, I was kicked out of one of the motels because Heading Home would not pay for another week. I had nowhere to go, and I went to Community Services, and they trespassed me and for asking for help. So I just would like to get some help. That's it.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Counselor Senna, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, and just thank you, Tara. Sorry, I did not
I'm
catch.
sorry, I'm crying.
Don't apologize. You should never apologize for that. But thank you for your bravery in sharing your story. I just want to know that it takes a lot to ask for help. So thank you for reaching out both times. I'm not sure what occurred, but would love to follow up. If you could reach out to our office through City Council, or even through my office at landsena@cabq.gov, and maybe we can get this situated. I know that there's the survey that you can actually fill out that looks at the actual applications of what housing you do qualify for. And then there is the coordinated entry system that can kind of follow up. So let's circle back offline if we can. If we can reach out to you, you can certainly call my office. I think my cell phone's even listed on the city website, and we'll see what's going on and see what programs you do qualify for. Okay.
I appreciate it. And I just want to say, like, I didn't choose this disability. I didn't even know I had it but it just made my life really hard. And I didn't know it resulted from an accident that I did not know was going to make my life change like this.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you. You have a
And
good
I
day.
know that I've spoken with you several times already.
And I
so
appreciate
you can
it.
reach
Thank
out
you.
again and we'll talk some more.
Thank you. Bye.
Mhm. All right, we will move on. Mr. Moya, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Our next speaker is Twyla McComb. Twyla, please feel free to turn your video on, unmute yourself, and your time will begin when you start speaking.
Madam President and City Councilors, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Twyla McComb, and I'm the chairperson of the Open Space Advisory Board. And I am speaking for the board regarding the short-term process instituted to change and dissolve the Open Space Trust Fund. I've been on the board for 4 years, and each of those years, the city's investment officers come to the board to report on the earnings and overall health of the fund. However, the acquisition of the pool property has focused our attention on the future of the trust. We've noted that the sponsor of O2179 has stated that the fund should be dissolved because it's just not earning enough money, and he's proposed a quick turnaround process to accomplish that end. But the board's research has shown that state law seems to allow a more aggressive investment. Why not allow the board to take comments from neutral outside financial advisors on that topic? Why not allow the board to exercise its responsibility to consider solutions that might change the nature of the fund, but keep the faith with the original purpose, keep the faith with the public, and finally keep faith with the most recent comprehensive plan? Instead of rushing this legislative process, why not give OSAB the opportunity to continue to develop recommendations regarding the trust? Have more open discussions with each other during our informal give and take process and make recommendations to you guys. This is our statutory role, and we'd welcome the opportunity to fulfill that responsibility to you. Thank you today for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Alan Reed. Alan, please feel free to turn your video back on. Looks like you're unmuted. Your time will begin when you start speaking.
Thank you, Madam President, councilors. Good afternoon. I'm here to speak about Councilor Harris's Bill 02179. I've been here many times before regarding the open space program and its history. The Open Space Trust Fund is the key issue in 02179. It was produced out of a 10-year-long process by city leaders from all corners of the community to find a way to protect the wonderful cultural and historic properties around the city. And as a result, we have almost 30,000 acres of open space, by far the largest, best, most diverse municipal open space system in the country, by far. And the trust fund has been a key ingredient in getting to this point. I think its purpose has not been understood well. It's not just a pool of money waiting for somebody to decide how to spend it. It is in fact a trust established after a temporary 3-year quarter-cent gross receipts tax, which raised over $20 million at the time. And it was intended to be permanent so that the investment earnings from it would not require additional taxation in order to support this large and growing and wonderful open space system that we have. So if it were spent as Councilor Harris's bill allows and encourages, in the future, you're going to have to raise taxes to pay for the open space program. And the fact it isn't making more money right now is a temporary condition that we could go into more fully. I recommend strongly.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Your time is up.
Can I finish my sentence? That's all
I would like to hear the rest of your your statement.
Okay.
Councilor
Well,
Reed.
I was just going to urge the council, which has sent this bill to Finance and Government Operations, to also extend it to LUPS, the Land Use Planning and Zoning Committee, because the trust fund's not just by any means a financial mechanism. It is a central backbone of this great open space program. And also forward it to the Open Space Advisory Board, where there's current expertise on the open space holdings that we have and the operation of the fund. Thank you so much for the chance to speak.
Thank you, Councilor Reed. And I just want to welcome Councilor Reed. He was a counselor when I was a staff person, and he was also my professor at the School of Public Administration. So it's been quite a long time since I've seen you, and I just want to welcome you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Councilor Benton.
Thank you, Madam President. And Councilor Reed, again, great to see you. I think 4 or 5 years ago, we spent a lot of time talking about the system and made amendments to the system. And a lot of folks, I mean, I think we moved the system forward in a way by creating criteria for open space and, logical criteria that and ranking systems as to our open space. And I want to appreciate you for that, just all that work 4 or 5 years ago when we went through that, and for your service on the board, and obviously your original service as a city councilor when all of this stuff came together 35 years ago, and you're saying after a 10-year process. So I didn't even know that part until now. But thanks again, and good to see your face there, Alan.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilor Benton. Mr. Moya.
Thank you, Madam President. Our next speaker is Courtney Snyder. Courtney, please feel free to turn your video back on, unmute yourself, and your time will begin when you start speaking.
Good afternoon, councilors, and thank you, Madam President. My name is Courtney Snyder. I'm an attorney with Jones Day, and I'm counsel to H&R Block. I signed up today to be available, if necessary, for Councilor Davis with respect to R21-213, which would declare a stay of enforcement of the Albuquerque Tax Preparer and Consumer Rights Ordinance for the upcoming tax season. We've been working diligently with the city and others for months on necessary improvements to the ordinance. We support the consumer protection goals of the city, and the stay will give all the stakeholders necessary time to continue talking about those amendments. And I would ask if I could reserve the remainder of my time if called upon by Councilor Davis later in the meeting.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. Moya.
Next speaker is Shelley Barker. Shelley, please feel free to turn your video on, unmute yourself, and your time will begin when you start speaking.
Ms. Barker, we cannot hear you. Can you unmute yourself, please? There you go.
You think you get good at that after a while, wouldn't you? Thank you, Councilor President, Councilman. Appreciate the time today. I saw on the agenda, first of all, I'm Shelley Barker. I'm a member of the New Mexico Society of Enrolled Agents. I've visited with you before. I saw on the agenda today that once again, you're going to visit about the tax preparer ordinance. So I just wanted to say a couple comments and present a couple reminders to you. The purpose is good. The purpose is wonderful. But what was passed back in February of 2021 is not good enough. It's not what you want to be on the books for 2022. The amendment that everyone was working on doesn't seem to be going anywhere. It doesn't seem to be going to pass. The committee, the Finance and Government Operations, deferred it twice. And then the committee wasn't able to meet for some reason last week on the 8th. So the amendment is essentially not going forward at all. We are now receiving City of Albuquerque Tax Preparer Annual Certification of Compliance. It's a little confusing to fill out and it's already outdated. It speaks about what is called a CRS number. And for maybe some of you that don't realize it, New Mexico Tax and Rev updated and redid their TAP website. So that number is now called a BTIN, B10, Business Taxpayer Identification Number. So there are things that are just not up to date and there's a lot of confusion out there. To be honest with you.
Thank you, Ms. Barker. Your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Our next speaker is Nicholas Madison. Nicholas, please feel free to turn your video on. I see you're unmuted. Your time will begin when you start speaking.
Madam President and councilors, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Nick Madison. I'm a consumer protection attorney in Albuquerque, and I'm here to speak against the amendments that are being proposed by H&R Block, which are designed explicitly to weaken the tax preparer ordinance, and through weakening it, to make sure that the changes to the tax preparer business never take place. And as for the immediate issue that's before the council, I'm here to speak against a delay in the implementation of that ordinance. We need this ordinance now. A lot of vulnerable people are going to see big, important tax credits this year. That includes the earned income tax credit, the child tax credit. In my experience as a consumer protection attorney here in Albuquerque, and previously as a legal aid attorney helping people living in poverty in Gallup, New Mexico, I learned two important things. Number one, people really depend on their tax refunds for important things, whether it's putting a down payment on a house, whether it's buying a car, whether it's getting caught up on rent. And the second thing I learned, and this is from personal experience, I'll echo what Grace Allison said, there are a lot of complaints by people who are taken advantage of by unscrupulous tax preparers. What the city of Albuquerque has come up with is a reasonable system that would address a lot of those problems. To delay the implementation of these ordinances would mean there is absolutely no consumer protection for the people who are getting their tax refunds next year. It's a denial of justice for those people. And this is in a crucial year when there are big changes to the tax code and people in a lot of need from COVID. So I'd urge the council, do not postpone the implementation of this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sylvia, and please excuse me if I mispronounce your last name, Aregin. Sylvia, please feel free to turn your video on and unmute yourself, and your time will begin when you start speaking.
Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon, Madam President and councilors. My name is Sylvia Aragon, and I'm one of the residents of Mesa Village off of Eubank and Lomas. I have read Councilor Gibson's R208 concerning Los Altos Park renovation and her proposed R208 FGO amendment. I like the idea of the renovation project with the exception of the sale of beer. This was once a beautiful park and now it has become a haven for the homeless, which includes needles, garbage, crime, and feces. To get Los Altos back to a family-friendly park will not include beer sales. Adults unfortunately behave badly at the Little League and Yaffle games. It is not a good mix. I ask you to listen to everyone who has taken the time to voice their opinion against the sale of beer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Madam President, there were two other individuals that signed up to speak that have not attended the meeting yet, so that will conclude public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Moya. All right, councilors, with that, we will move on to item number 5, which is administration question and answer period. I've only received one question from Councilor Trudy Jones. Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a question for Chief Medina, please.
Madam President, Councilor Jones, we have Commander Lavender here to speak to answer that question.
All right. My question is that there was a traffic study done on westbound Montgomery.
I'm sorry, Councilor.
Study done on speeding on westbound Montgomery. The results were amazing, and that is Of 84,992 total vehicles, 12,339 were driving 50 to 64 miles an hour, and 448 were going faster than 64 miles per hour, and one vehicle was going 140 miles per hour. This is all where the speed limit is posted on Montgomery at 35 to 40 miles an hour. We've received constant complaints and concerns about the safety for people getting onto the street, driving, being smashed by these. I'd like to know what APD's plan is to try to attempt, not just attempt, but to in fact stop this horrific speeding in this area of the city. Most specifically, of course, on Montgomery.
This is Roger Legendary, Acting Commander with the Albuquerque Police Department, Madam President. And Councilor Jones, to answer that question, I want to start off with saying that that speed study has been helpful in identifying the data that we need in order to give the resources to reduce those sort of infractions of speeding. At this time, what we are doing is an increased patrol and enforcement on Montgomery. That includes an additional team that was put together and supported by the mayor and Chief Medina of motor officers, where we have an additional 4 officers and a sergeant that are now assigned strictly to enforcement of traffic laws. We do have tactical operation plans that go on from Wednesday through Sunday that we have motor officers and DWI officers out throughout those times where we see these infractions occurring most often. They're looking for those that are drag racing. They're looking for those modified exhausts. They're looking for those speeding infractions that we're seeing through this speed study. Our traffic unit is very committed to working on the Montgomery issues that we're seeing with speeding. This most up-to-date speed study as November 8th through the 14th. And some of those results that you had read prior, we have seen them go, they were lower this past week. I'm looking at 50,827 vehicles that passed through the enforcement area on westbound Montgomery. 7,669 vehicles were traveling between 0 and 40 miles an hour, which is in the posted 40-mile-per-hour zone. They were actually going the speed limit. 36,076 vehicles were traveling between 40 and 50 miles per hour in a posted 40-mile-per-hour zone. So they were going upwards to 10 miles above the speed limit, anything in between. That was 71% of the vehicles. So we do have that speeding issue, that concern. 6,873 vehicles were traveling between 50 and 64 miles per hour in a posted 40-mile-per-hour zone. That's 13.5%. 209 vehicles were traveling over 64 miles an hour, posted 40-mile-per-hour zone. The average speed between all of these vehicles that had gone through that area was 44.8 miles per hour. And the fastest speed from the 8th through the 14th we found was 93.72 miles per hour. So whereas it still is a concern, we definitely do have the resources that we are getting out onto Montgomery in order to try to lessen the speeding that's happening on Montgomery.
Madam President, if I may follow up. And the question is, sir, how long will that continue, and what are the ramifications for those people, most especially at the highest rate of speeding? Are they receiving tickets? Are they impounding like 140 miles an hour? Are they impounding cars? What exactly is being done?
So as far as the extent of how long the TAC plans are going to continue, they're going to continue so long as we continue to have that to be an area that's going to be our highest area that has the issue of speeding. Using data, we're able to pinpoint those areas that have the most need. That's where we're going to put those resources. And so long as that's the area that has the most need, that's where our officers are going to be. As far as what sort of enforcement's being taken, most often, like we see 71% were, that in between that 10 miles and out and 10 miles over the speed limit. Those sort of individuals going 10 miles over the speed limit, they can expect a citation. That citation carries either a fine, a warning, and or opportunity to go to court and try to keep their record clean and whatnot. So it's one of those 3 options. Anybody who's traveling 20 miles and over can be considered reckless driving. Those individuals could potentially be arrested based on state statute. I don't have those stats in front of me as far as what our traffic unit has done over the past few weeks. But yes, it can, most often when somebody's stopped for speeding, they can expect a citation that comes either with a hefty fine or having to go to court numerous times, and which may result in schools of better driving or even fines or anything of that nature that the judge may impose upon them.
And if I may, just one more follow-up, Madam President.
You
It's
still
my-
have the floor, madam.
Thank you. And it's my understanding from numerous conversations with citizens that, in fact, very few of the people who get these citations, in fact, pay them, nor do they show up in court or have any further ramifications. What is your experience with that?
For those that aren't showing up to court, what's going to wind up happening even if they do show up to court, they could potentially have points taken off their driver's license. Your driver's license has up to 12 points. A speeding infraction can lead up to 3 points off of those 12 points. At the end, if you build up 12 points, your license can be suspended, meaning that the next time they're actually stopped, then their vehicle could actually be towed and everything else at that point. There are more ramifications. If they do not show up to court, they're going to be issued a bench warrant. So there will be a warrant for their arrest. So the next time they are stopped or come into contact with law enforcement, they're likely going to be arrested for that bench warrant, where they're going to have to go speak to the judge about the speeding ticket that they did not show up to. We are looking forward to the mobile speed enforcement that was supported by City Council. I feel that that's going to do a whole lot of good, as far as so many officers can do so much work, but having that mobile speed enforcement is going to be very helpful. And I want to thank the City Council for having supported that.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for the update and your explanations. I would hope that you would continue to provide my office with the information when you run an area for any length of time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam President.
Councilor Gibson, did you have a comment or question?
Yes, just really briefly, and maybe maybe they were talking about this just a moment ago, but I think it's worth a second mention, even if it was. It seems to me that this is a part of a pathway that young, or maybe not so young, drivers use for street speeding, street racing. And it used to be that the La Mirada parking lot on the southwest corner of, I believe that's Wyoming. Yes, Wyoming and Montgomery was a place where they congregated. So it would seem to me that we'd have several repeat offenders, represented in these numbers, and probably the higher end of the speed of the miles per hour, this rate of speed. So I guess I would like to ask APD about that. Do you believe that the people who are using that as a track for speeding and organized race, do you believe that they are being pulled over and cited for speeding?
Madam President and Councilor Gibson, in speaking to Acting Commander Wheeler of the Traffic Division, I actually asked that question myself. And he said that it's not as much the organized drag racing or anything of that nature where they're seeing a majority of the issues. A lot of the people speeding are day-to-day drivers that they're seeing, traveling on Montgomery. Not to say that the drag racing and the congregation doesn't, contribute to the issue as well, but what they're seeing is it's more the day-to-day driver that is going up and down Montgomery that they're experiencing the issues with. Those TAC plans that they wind up doing do target drag racing areas, known drag racing areas throughout the city, not just on Montgomery, but other areas throughout the city. That's also a concern, those organized drag racing areas that they're congregating at and causing some of these issues. Those are focused on during those plans. But to answer the question, it's a lot of the day-to-day type drivers that we're just seeing the speeding with and not just contributed to the drag racing efforts that they're doing.
448 drivers were going faster than 64 miles per hour. Wow. That to me seems more than even more than just inattention to where they are or forgetting, the speed limit. But I don't mean to be argumentative. I'm just, still getting over these numbers, looking at the numbers. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Councillor Benton, and councillors, may I remind you to use your raise hand feature. It's kind of hard to see people waving their hands. So Councillor Benton, thank you for doing that.
You're welcome, Madam President. I just, these are shocking figures, and I think it's really important to note that, sure, there's drag racing going on. There are drag races. There's people out there in the middle of the night that do that recreationally. Whether they're setting up with a person with their hands dropping to say go and dragging for a quarter mile or not, that's one thing, but they're doing it out on public streets like Central Avenue is where you're not going to be that bold as to, most likely, although who knows, they may become that bold to set up something like that on Central. But we know that there's the drag racing thing. But I think the takeaway is this is becoming standard behavior for Albuquerque drivers. I mean, for many of them. And it doesn't matter where, I saw a truck go by on Central today, a beat up old construction truck, but he had the massive muffler on it and he had a big V8 and he was going to show everybody that he was coming through there and have them look at him and pay attention to him. There's a lot of really bizarre behavior and it snowballs. It snowballs into everybody thinking, or not everybody, but I mean, the culture is changing. And I think that's what we've got to stop, hopefully with this automated enforcement, just to remind everyone, when I got a red light ticket, it wasn't for speeding, it was for going through a red light. But when I got an automated ticket, I made sure that I was looking out at red lights in the future. That taught me a lesson. And I think we ought to, everybody needs to just chill. The fact that we were bold enough, and I appreciate all my fellow councilors who voted for this. We were bold enough to just go ahead and do this and not ask for permission or anything like that. We went ahead and decided we're going to be leaders, and we're going to put it in that it was clearly in the city's best interest. So. Thanks to all the councilors who did that. Thanks to the administration for supporting that. And under the previous chief, I asked that question. They go, oh, well, there's civil liberties issues with these cameras and I don't support it. Well, that's the wrong answer because these are being used all over the country effectively. And so good on that. But I think with regard to the tactical plans, yeah, I would ask APD to start looking at that somewhat differently. And looking at the hot spots of where it's just all the time, it may not be drag racing, but it's all the time abusive driving behavior. And it affects all sorts of things. We try to support sidewalk dining and things like that. Forget that. That's not, who wants to sit there with these things going by? So thanks for the report. Thanks for bringing this up, Councillor Jones. We've got to keep doing more. What we've done so far is just a start. We've got to continue to pay attention to this. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councillor Benton. With that, I don't see any other comments. So we will move on to item number 6, which is our journal. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. One moment. Okay, I'll move the approval of the November 3rd journal.
Counselor, you have a second from Counselor Sena. Are there any questions? If not, we will move on to a vote. Ms. Ortega?
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0. Thank you.
Thank you, counselors. Item number 6 passes on a 9-0 vote. We will move on to item number 7. Are there any changes to the letter of introduction? And I will move to Counselor Sena.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the rules be suspended for the purpose of pulling EC 460 out of the Land Use Planning and Zoning Committee and placing it on today's agenda for action. EC 460 is the mayor's appointment of Mrs. Jana Lynn Pfeiffer to the Environmental Planning Commission.
Thank you, Counselor. It looks like you have several seconds, Counselor Bassan and Counselor Harris. I will remind the council that we need 2/3 of our counselors present required to vote on this. So with that, we will move on to Ms. Ortega.
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
I'm sorry, could the motion be repeated, please?
the motion is by Counselor Sena to suspend the rules to pull EC 460 out of the LUPS committee, and EC 460 is the appointment of Miss Jana Lynn Pfeiffer to the EPC.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega.
Counselor Benton,
No.
Counselor Davis,
No.
Counselor Gibson,
No.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
No.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego.
Yes.
Motion fails on a 5-4 vote. A rule suspension requires 6.
Thank you, Counselor Sena.
I have,
Madam President, I would like to make a motion.
I'm sorry, Counselor Sena. Counselor Harris, did you have a comment regarding
Ma-
this
Madam
particular?
President, I had my hand up prior to either of the other two counselors speaking.
go ahead. I'll defer to Councilor Benton if that's true.
Counselor Benton, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to explain my vote. This nomination, along with many other things, were made after the election when with very little time left in the year and of the tenure of this council. Although I, in committee, supported moving this forward, and I really support moving this nomination forward, I do not support doing it now. I believe that the incoming city councilor needs to weigh in on the appointment. And this has nothing to do with the qualifications of the employee or the nominee, excuse me. And it also doesn't even really have any, I hope it's clear to Councilor Sena that it has nothing to do with my respect for her and for the whole concept of this appointment. I support that concept. I'm very interested in that we have that discussion going forward about who should sit on the Environmental Planning Commission. But the fact is, I would like to move, if possible, my motion would be, if we couldn't even do that, we're procedurally where we are, I'd stand to be corrected. But that we move this to January to have an opportunity for the new counselor from District 1 to meet the appointee and keep this appointment alive. That would be my proposal, but that explains my vote. So
Thank you, Counselor Benton. I'll go back to Counselor Harris and then I'll come back to Counselor Sena.
Sure. Yeah, maybe Mr. Melendres can explain, because I know we changed the rules where it only takes 4 votes to blast something out of a committee now, but I guess there has to be some action in the committee. I mean, how does that work? Why do we need 6 if we only need 4 to take it out of the committee?
Mr. Melendres.
Madam President, Councilor Harris, the motion was to take the bill out of committee and place it on tonight's agenda for action. And so that's a rule suspension and that requires 6. There is a special procedure for rejection of a committee report. It requires 4 votes. I think that's what you're referring to. But if the council is going to vote to simply pull a bill out of committee and not place it on the agenda that it is acting under, then that is a 5 vote. So it'd be 5 to pull it out, put it on a meeting later, 6 to pull it out, put it on today's meeting.
So 5, oh, so if we have 5 votes, we can put it on a later meeting. Just not today.
Correct.
Okay. So we can
Thank
put it
you,
on the
Councilor
December.
Harris, for that question. Councilor Senna. Councilor Senna, are you going to go back to making another motion on this, or are you? Before you do, I want to address the concern that I have with Councilor Benton's discussion regarding this particular bill and any other bills. Councilors are elected for 4 years. And I think that our term does not end until December 31st. So with that logic, that would mean that any items that we vote on should be deferred until January 2022, which I think is really, quite unreasonable, because there is a specific term that counselors are elected to. And I think those terms allow counselors to do things that within their term. So I have some reservation, Councilor Benton, with regard to your discussion. That would mean any appointments or anything that we vote on during the next month and a half should be deferred until January. And I really have some concern with regard to that. It seems somewhat disrespectful to the term of the elected counselor. So I just want to say that for the record, and I'm going to go to Councilor Senna.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll make the motion to pull this EC 460 out of the land use planning and zoning and have it heard at the next council meeting on December 6th. I believe that everyone should have a fair hearing. Madam President, you're muted.
Do I have a second for Councilor Senna's motion? Councilor Pena, thank you for that second. With that, we will go back to EC 460 and look for a vote to put it on the December 6th agenda. Ms. Ortega?
Councillor Bassan,
Yes.
Councillor Benton,
Yes.
Councillor Davis,
No.
Councillor Gibson,
No.
Councillor Harris,
Yes.
Councillor Jones,
No.
Councillor Pena,
Yes.
Councillor Senna,
Yes.
Councillor Borrego.
Yes.
Motion passes on a 6-3 vote.
I'm sorry, Ms. Ortega, I was muted. I said yes.
Yes, passes on a 6-3 vote, and the matter will be on the December 6th agenda for consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega, and thank you, Councillor Senna. So we will move on to Councillor Gibson. Councillor Gibson.
Madam President, I'd like to explain my vote.
Councillor Benton, go ahead.
So I voted to go ahead and move this forward. I'm not disagreeing that this candidate appointee deserves a hearing, and I think we should have that hearing. But I do take exception to the idea that I'm being disrespectful. I pointed out that I do appreciate Councilor Senna's appointment, and I was impressed by the appointee in committee, but I do have questions about that appointee. And I wanted to ask staff if they can look this up real quickly. How long was this a vacancy on the EPC prior to this evening? Does somebody have that question, that answer, Ms. Schultz or someone?
Madam President, Councilor Benton, sure, I can answer that question for you. The District 1 seat has been vacant since January of this year.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. It appears that Councillor Senna has a comment.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to address the reason for its vacancy. I think that one issue that we strive for on council, especially in our board appointments, and something as a resolution that we committed ourselves as well as the governing body of the city, is to actually make a concerted effort to actually fill these boards and commissions so that it reflects our community. I believe that it's the necessary work of our council that whoever makes each appointment for their respective districts actually makes and does that work. So because of this vacancy for so long, it's because I've been searching for someone exactly like Ms. Pfeiffer for so long. I will note that in your emails, you will see a comment from Mr. Regis Pecos, as well as Terry Sloan, as well as individuals from our Indigenous Planning Institute as to her backing. And it's one of the reasons why I felt that it is necessary to have a full hearing and discussion of her appointment, especially in light of not just November being Indigenous Peoples Month, but also in the recent decision for Chaco Canyon, and also respecting the decision of Yazzie V. Martinez and the commitment we made to the city and to our tribes, pueblos, and communities that we would never have a repeat of the Manal School gravesite burials. So this is why it's important to have this discussion. I thank you for having really the discussion to have this at the next council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Sena. With that, Councillor Sena, we're going to move on to our next item, and that is Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the rules be suspended for the purpose of placing R216 on today's agenda for action. R216 is concerning the municipal runoff election to be held in the city of Albuquerque, New Mexico on Tuesday, the 7th day of December, 2021.
I'll second that, Councillor. So councillors, I will remind us that this particular item requires 2/3 of a vote from all of our councillors that are present today. And with that, we will move on to Ms. Ortega.
Councillor Bassan.
Yes.
Councillor Benton.
Yes.
Councillor Davis.
Yes.
Councillor Gibson.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Jones.
Yes.
Councillor Pena.
Yes.
Councillor Sena.
Yes.
Councillor Borrego.
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you, councillors. That item passes on a 9-0 vote. With that, we will move on to our next order of business. I believe, Councillor Pena, you took the lead on this, so I will let you go ahead and move this item.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the rules be suspended for the purpose of introducing R222 and placing it on the December 6th council agenda for action. R222 is establishing the legislative and budget priorities for the city of Albuquerque for the second session of the 55th New Mexico State Legislature. And I already moved it. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. You have a second, I believe, from Councillor Sena. Is that a second, Councillor Sena? Thank you, and I will second that as well. Councillors, I will also mention that this requires 2/3 of councillors present required this afternoon in order for it to pass. So with that, I will move on to Ms. Ortega.
Councillor Bassan.
Yes.
Councillor Benton.
Yes.
Councillor Davis.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Jones.
Yes.
Councillor Pena.
Yes.
Councillor Sena.
Yes.
Councillor Borrego.
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you, councillors. That concludes the items that I have. We will go back to Councillor Gibson. Councillor Gibson for a motion.
Thank you, Madam President. I move approval of the letter of introduction.
Thank you, Councillor. You have a second, I believe, from Councillor Pena. Is that a second, Councillor Pena?
I actually was going to comment on the last bill just briefly.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor. Can I come back to you after we're done with this motion? I'm
Yes,
sorry, I
but
didn't see your
second it.
hand up. You can second this. Thank you. So with that, councillors, we will move on to the vote.
Councillor Bassan.
Yes.
Councillor Benton.
Yes.
Councillor Davis.
Yes.
Councillor Gibson.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you, counselors. R222 passes unanimously, and also our letter of introduction. I will go back to Counselor Pena. Counselor Pena.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to thank the sponsors of this bill. And as you know, every year we work really hard to get all the priorities from each of the counselors and the administration into this bill. And I just kind of want to briefly state for the public and for some of the media who may be watching is that it's still work in progress. So I know there's going to be a few additional minor adjustments. So just be patient with us as we get it ready for the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Pena. We appreciate the work you did on this. So with that, counselors, we are going to move on to item number 8, which is reports of committees, and we will dispense with that since there is none. We will move on to deferrals and withdrawals. Counselors, are there any deferrals or withdrawals at this time? Counselors, I have one, and I would like to read it into the record. This is 049, amending Chapter 2, Article 2, Section 1 of the Revised Ordinances of Albuquerque, New Mexico, 1994, the Capital Improvements Ordinance for the creation of capital set aside for underserved areas and communities. I move deferral until February 23rd. I have a second from Counselor Pena, Counselor Bassan. I believe those are seconds. Counselors? Thank you. So with that, I need a vote. Ms. Ortega?
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0 on the deferral to February 23rd.
Thank you, counselors. With that, I hope that my successor has a chance to meet with the capital improvements folks and work with other counselors to look at this bill a little more closely. So thank you. We will move on to item number 9, which is our consent agenda. Are there any changes to the consent agenda? And before we go into that, counselors, I need to read something into the record. For the individuals on tonight's consent agenda who are being appointed to serve on boards or commissions and who may be watching from home, we want to thank you for your willingness to serve the city of Albuquerque. Counselor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. I move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Counselor Gibson. Is there a second? Counselor Bassan, thank you for that second. So, Ms. Ortega?
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. With that, counselors, we will move on to item number 11, which are announcements. Counselor Pena.
Thank you, Madam President. There will be an intergovernmental legislative relations committee meeting on Wednesday, November 17th at 4 p.m. via Zoom video conference.
Thank you, Counselor Pena. Counselor Bassan.
Thank you, Madam President. There will be an Albuquerque Bernalillo County Government Commission meeting on Thursday, November 18th at 5 p.m. via Zoom video conference.
Thank you, Counselor Bassan, and you have the next one as well.
Thank you, Madam President. And there will also be a Finance and Government Operations Committee meeting on Monday, November 22nd at 3 p.m. via Zoom video conference.
Thank you. So with that, we will move on to our next order of business. We will dispense with item number 12, which is public hearings, because there are none. Counselors, we will move on to item number 13. Approvals And I guess we do not have anything under item number 13 either. So we are just like moving right along here, counselors, for a change, right? Counselors, we will move on to our final actions. And I will just mention that I had a request from Counselor Davis, which I'm going to grant. Counselor Davis, R211, to move that first on the agenda. I think you had some folks that were wanting to speak that have to leave, right?
Yes, ma'am. And Madam President, we appreciate that. And you heard from some of them earlier, and we appreciate it. And hopefully we can dispense with this fairly quickly. I'm pulling this up here. R211, Madam President, provides for the authorization, execution, and delivery of the amendment of a certain lease between the city and Kairos Power in connection with the previously issued IRB for that project. I would move a do pass.
Thank you, Counselor Davis. You have a second, I believe, from Counselor Benton and Counselor Bassan. Are those seconds, counselors? Yes, thank you so much. Counselor Davis.
Thank you, Madam President. We have some folks from Kairos Power as well as the city from the administration available to answer questions, as well as Mr. Muirhead if we need it. But in short, this is a technical cleanup is the way I would describe it, to be sure that the IRB aligns with the current business plan. But if counselors have questions, I would defer to the experts for those details. But I know that's been information that's been provided in the counselor packets before the meetings.
Thank you, Counselor Davis. It appears that we have Director Damian Lara and our attorney, Chris Muirhead. Would one of you care to speak?
Damian, you want me to?
I'm fine.
Go ahead.
Councilor Borrego, Councilor Davis is absolutely correct. This is a cleanup. It will expand the property currently under the IRB to meet the business plans and actually the reality on the ground. So we would also support President Borrego's and the council's support and passage of this item.
You, Director Lara. Mr. Muirhead, did you have anything to add?
Madam President, members of the council, no, Damian has summed it up well.
Okay. Councilors, are there any questions? Counselor Davis.
Thanks, Madam President. If there are no other questions, I'd like to go ahead and move the floor substitute that's available in iPads. It would be floor substitute for R211.
Thank you, Counselor. I'll second that floor substitute. And I also see a second from Counselor Bassan. Are there any questions regarding the floor sub? I do not see any. Well, wait a minute. I spoke too soon. Counselor Bassan.
Thank you, Madam President. I just don't know if Mr. Muirhead wants to go ahead and clarify what changes are in there to make it a little streamlined for everyone, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, Councilor Bassan. Yes, so the floor amendment just cleans up some unnecessary publication requirements. There was in the initial introduced version, there was a reference to publishing adoption, which is not necessary. So it just took out that publication requirement just so that it was clear. The substance of the bill remains exactly as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Muirhead. Any questions, counselors? I don't see anyone's hand raised. So I'm going to go back to our sponsor, Counselor Davis.
Urge support.
Ms. Ortega.
Counselor Bassan.
Yes.
Counselor Benton.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
Counselor Gibson. Counselor Gibson. Stepped away. Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor Pena. Counselor Pena.
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Sena.
Yes.
Counselor Borrego.
Yes, and I believe Counselor Gibson's back on if you want to go back.
Counselor Gibson.
Yes, thank you very much. I had to leave to get a drink of water. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My vote is yes.
Okay.
Thank you, counselors.
9-0 on the floor sub.
The floor sub passes on a 9-0. We'll go back to the original bill. Counselor Davis.
And Madam President, as with the previous, we are grateful and excited to have this company here moving forward. And so I would urge your support.
Thank you, Counselor Davis. We will go to Ms. Ortega for a vote.
Counselor Bassan?
Yes.
Counselor Benton?
Yes.
Counselor Davis?
Yes.
Counselor Gibson?
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Harris?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Pena?
Yes.
Counselor Sena?
Yes.
Counselor Borrego?
Yes.
9-0 on R211 as substituted.
Thank you. For the public's sake, R211 does pass on a 9-0 vote as substituted. And if you'll give me just a moment here to write it down, I am going to come back then to item number B, which is Counselor Pena's bill. And Counselor Pena, I will go to you.
Thank you, Madam President. Item B is floor sub R182, establishing corridor improvements for 118th Street from Interstate 40 to Senator Dennis Chavez Boulevard as a priority for the city of Albuquerque. Funding processes encouraging the New Mexico Department of Transportation to prioritize the approval and construction of an interchange at Interstate 40 and 118th, forming a partnership with the County of Bernalillo to develop 118th Street. I move a do pass. And then we have an amendment. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor Pena. It looks like you have a second from Counselor Sena. And we will go on to your amendment.
It's actually Counselor Sena's amendment.
I'm sorry, Counselor Sena, is this the only amendment we have on this particular bill? I think it is, right? So we will call this floor amendment number 1. Counselor Sena.
Thank you, Madam President. This is floor amendment 1 to floor sub 21182 is as follows. In the explanation, it should say actually 118th to Ladera rather than 188th. Pretty much extending the boundaries from Ladera on rather than cutting it off at I-40. So it's including just a little bit more of the district as well.
That's in the explanation, correct, Counselor?
Yes, in the explanation, it should read 118th, not 188th.
Okay, that's a minor amendment. So we have a motion for floor amendment number 1 from Counselor Sena, and I think a second from Counselor Benton, or is that a question, Counselor?
It's a question.
Okay, do I have a second? Counselor Pena? Okay, thank you for that second, and that's on floor amendment number 1. Counselor Benton.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Manacucci, this would extend the priority, citywide priority, right, from the present stretch from Senator Dennis Chavez to I-40. How much further would this extend? We can't hear you, Tom.
Mr. Manacucci, could you adjust your audio, please?
Yes, thank you, Yes, Madam President. Thank you. Councilor Benton, it should be less than a half a mile. It's basically, or about a half a mile, it's extending to Arroyo Vista Boulevard. As Arroyo Vista, as you know, it comes off of Interstate 40 to the north, and then at Ladera, it takes a bend to the northwest. And so as it's heading in that northwesterly direction, it would extend directly to that location. I can get you a measurement up here real quick in just a minute or two, if you, or just.
Yeah, just approximately in relation to the distance of the other, of the original proposal.
Okay, sure.
And while you're looking that up, I probably shouldn't ask you 2 questions at once, Tom.
That's all right.
But while you're looking that up, Arroyo Vista, is this the alternative that has been suggested to Paseo del Volcan
No, Counselor, that's actually a roadway that I believe exists right now. It's 98th Street North. Rio Vista is 98th Street North.
Rio Vista. Maybe I heard it wrong.
Yeah.
I heard Arroyo Vista.
Yeah, it's and I think, let me see right here. It's called Arroyo Vista. I apologize. I should be more clear. It's Arroyo Vista Boulevard. From about the 118th Street right of way, and I can do a quick thing. Depending on the angle it takes, it looks to be running, and I can check that real quick because it does look like I-40 takes a little bit of a bend to the south, but it does look to be actually, instead of half a mile, about 1.1 to 1.2 miles, because the I-40 takes a little bit of a bend to the south by the time it gets to I-40 out to Royal Vista, and Royal Vista continues to head northwest.
How does that compare to the present bill?
Compared to, you mean distance? Is that
distance?
It?
Yeah.
You mean what? So the present bill, and I'll get you that. I believe I'll have that for you just a second here. That is, the present bill is about 3.5 miles. So this would add 1.2 more miles.
Okay, so it had roughly a quarter of what the project already was. Look, I haven't had a chance to look at the land use patterns thing in that area. I think a lot of this discussion about building roads is extremely neglectful of what our land use policy is in these areas. And so, I can't support this amendment just because it's coming in here. I mean, Councilor Pena's worked on this for a long time. We've talked about it quite a bit, but now this would be a big change. And I just don't have time to digest this. I can't support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Benton. I will go to Councilor Pena, who's been waiting, and then back to Councilor Sena. I don't see any other councilors waiting. So Councilor Pena.
Thank you, Madam President. And Tom, I just want to get clarification. I had heard, received a call, earlier today from the media, and just want to make sure that the amendment in the way it reads sounds, I was told that it sounds like it's doing away with the construction of Interstate 40, because I see where they may have gotten that. It says on page 3, lines 3 to 12, delete Interstate 40 and the construction.
Yeah, so Interstate 40, yeah. So basically what it does is it just takes the termini. So what that line says is on page 3 is that it's Interstate 40 and the construction of the interchange at Interstate 40. This changes it to Ladera Drive and the construction of the interchange at Interstate 40, I believe. And that would be on page 3 I'll look at the amendment again.
I just want to, Madam President, apologize. I just want to make sure that it remains with the construction of the interchange and it extends to Ladera with the construction of that intersection. That makes sense.
And Madam President, your permission, Councilor Pena, if I can be able to check on that. What page is that? Page 3?
It's actually on the amendment itself.
It's page, I believe it's page 3, line 9. Is that right?
On page 3, lines 3, line 12.
Okay, 118th Street.
It's Councilor Sena's amendment is where I'm reading this from.
This is on the floor sub. Page 3, lines 12. Yeah, so when it says Dennis Chavez it'll now read, right now it reads from Senator Dennis Chavez to Interstate 40 and the construction of interchange at I-40. So right now, they'll read from Ladera Drive to, from Ladera Drive to Interstate 40. So I think maybe Dennis Chavez to Ladera Drive. And then the next line should say, and the construction. So it continues it. And then the Ladera Drive, it does take out Interstate 40 and the construction out of that, but then it replaces it with Ladera Drive and the construction. The reason I had to do that is because there are 2 Interstate 40s in line 12. So if we were to say just Interstate 40, the scroller would have to take out both Interstate 40s, and that would be incorrect. So this just makes it clear that it's just the first Interstate 40 and the construction.
Madam President, Mr. Minicucci, so just to be clear, the construction of Interstate 40 remains within. Yes. Okay, that's all I really wanted to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Pena, does that conclude your question?
Yes, thank you, Madam President.
Counselor Sena.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Councilor Pena, for that clarifying language. I just want to add, one of the reasons why I asked for this amendment specific to add to this bill is, we prioritized previously, and we've had this discussion, even the West Side Coalition of Neighborhood Associations wrote in a letter of support to have the construction of the hospital that would be there off 118th, and that's just on the other side of the freeway. So I said for Ladera to actually cut through there and add on to this prioritization list, they would also include areas for infrastructure, not just for the hospital that would be constructed there, but also for sports facilities in the area, specifically the Ken Sanchez West Side Indoor Sports Complex, and kind of creating more of that to include from Ladera on, and that's why it starts at Ladera.
Thank you for that clarification, Counselor Sena. Counselor Benton's waiting to ask a question also.
Madam Chair, I have a motion to defer this until our next meeting, so we have a chance to actually, that the entire bill is of very great importance, I think, to the city. It's not just a West Side question. It's like, what are we doing? Where are we going as a city? And how do we make decisions about building millions of dollars in roadways? This roadway, a lot of the original portion is in the county of Bernalillo, unincorporated county. Now we're going to talk about a whole new stretch and add it in one night. I can't support that. And so I'm moving a deferral into our next meeting.
So Counselor Benton, you're asking for a deferral on FSR 182?
Yes.
Is that a second, Counselor Davis?
Yes.
Okay, we have a comment, I think, from Counselor Sena.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to clarify there with Mr. Melendrez that the current motion we were actually discussing the amendment. So now we're on the motion to defer the entire bill rather than just the amendment. Is that correct?
Madam President, Councilor Sena, the motion to defer takes precedent over any other pending motion, and so that would be the next order to take up.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Melendrez. I think I'm certainly open to this discussion for this next council meeting. I just want to note, the president just signed major legislation when it comes to infrastructure investment as we talk about the West Side and really just this area and the need for it specific. This is really reasons why that, we're including we heard it from Mr. Minacucci, just this small portion that would also include major infrastructure for a proposed hospital, which is something that we, of course, desperately need when it comes to our state and for our West Side. So, I look forward to that conversation and the added need for the infrastructure as we're discussing this nationally.
Thank you, Counselor Sena. We appreciate that comment. Counselor Benton.
If I may, Madam President, I'll close on my motion. Yeah, totally understand. These are long-standing discussions we've had in this community. Anybody who's been around long enough to hear all the discussions about what somewhat unhindered West Side sprawl growth has cost our city, and now it's going to cost us some more. And it keeps growing, and it can keep growing. And the justifications for it can keep growing because we've built what we've built. But this is my point about land use planning with regard to these roads, whether it's Councilor Sena's addition to the bill or the original proposal itself, which is largely in the county. And just to point out really quickly, the county commission approved this as a priority, not of countywide, but a priority of the commissioner's district. I think should be thinking about doing the same here. But to say that this is suddenly a citywide priority is questionable. And we haven't had discussions about the land use. I've proposed that. I've proposed that we slow roll this for a while we can talk to the Bernalillo County Planning Department, have them talk to our planning department. There are a lot of questions as to what becomes of these roads when we build them. You build it and they will come. The question is, who are they and what do they intend to build? We don't know that. And to say that we're going to build a fully build out of this roadway is, questions remain. I think we really ought to have a reasonable discussion about what this is all about. If it's just about building a 2-lane road to help people get to shopping, as we've discussed previously, I'm all for that. But to make this a regional, citywide priority, or not a regional priority, but a citywide priority, and to present it to the regional transportation board, I think is questionable. But in the meantime, I support Councilor Sena's proposal to add it in that we should discuss that. It's a legitimate addition to the project, but it further complicates what this bill is about. And that's the reason I urge councilors to defer this and let's have it. Let's reset. Let's get some more information before the next meeting and keep talking about it.
Thank you, Councilor Benton. Appreciate your comments. We will move on to our motion for deferral. We will move on to a vote with Ms. Ortega, please.
Councilor Bassan.
No.
And councilors, just to clarify, this is for our December 6th meeting. I'm sorry, Councilor Bassan.
Councilor Bassan.
No.
Councilor Benton.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Gibson.
Yes.
Councilor Harris.
No.
Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Councilor Pena.
No.
Councilor Sena.
No.
Councilor Borrego.
No.
Motion to defer fails on a 4-5 vote. That takes us back to Amendment 1.
Thank you, councilors. So that motion to defer has failed. We will go back to amendment number 1. Councilor Sena.
Thank you, Madam President. I think we've discussed this. I mean, I'm certainly willing to discuss it more as you were just stating as to its need. But like I said, that this really would implement more emphasis too, as well as need for the infrastructure needed for our hospital, for our Consensus Indoor Westside Complex. And that's why I urge your support.
Thank you, Councilor Sena. With that, we had a second and we will move on to the vote for amendment number 1.
Councilor Bassan.
Yes.
Councilor Benton.
No.
Councilor Davis.
No.
Councilor Gibson.
No.
Councilor Harris. Councilor Harris.
Councilor Harris, you need
Yes.
to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yes. Sorry.
Thank you. Councilor Jones.
No.
Councilor Pena.
Yes.
Councilor Sena.
Yes.
Councilor Borrego.
Yes.
Motion passes on a 5-4 vote.
So that floor amendment passes, councilors. We will move on back to the original bill, Councilor Sena or Councilor Pena. They're spelled almost the same.
Thank you. Mine doesn't have the tilde on it. I don't know if it allows it on here, but anyway, thank you, Madam President. I appreciate that. Just to close on it and just say that I urge everyone's support. This is such an important road in the community. If you read the resolution, it really tells you that this is something that it's really a feeder road for the city of Albuquerque, and it's an important stretch that needs to be completed into the future of growth in the city of Albuquerque. You hear it over and over again, and I know our land use policies that we have in the city of Albuquerque are kind of the form-based code, and they talk about inner inner city. I really believe this area of town is part of the inner city. Much of it is in the pre-Albuquerque boundaries, and yet it hasn't been developed. So, I look forward to, the growth of our city, and I look forward to developing an area that's been underserved and hasn't really developed in the way that it should moving forward, because as you all know, this Southwest Mesa in particular is really the area where the city's going to grow. And I think that we need to make sure that we do it right once and for all. So I urge all your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Pena. Looks like there were some questions. So I'm going to allow those questions. Councilor Gibson and then Councilor Benton. I think Councilor Gibson had her hand up first. Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. So I believe in this bill. I want to be part of the solution for the people who have been long suffering and trying to get in and out of their neighborhoods. However, I'm in a position now where I can't vote for it. It's really bad practice to do what we have just done, which is to allow an 11th hour amendment that has such a large impact on the whole bill. It adds a very significant part. And I wish that some of the counselors who feel differently about this would have considered the sort of the precedent this tries to make. It's not a good way of doing business, number one. And number two, it's better to have, I would like to have like DMD look at these things and come up with a plan of how projects like this can be executed. And that can't happen if we add to them the way we've done tonight. So Councilor Pena, I am really sorry. And to your people in your district, and particularly in that neighborhood, I truly apologize that I just can't vote for this. Thank you.
Councilor Benton.
Thank you, Madam President. Here's the problem. This bill calls for the full build out of this road as a citywide priority. Let me point out, this road goes to next to nowhere. It is going through unincorporated county for the most part, south of I-40. I don't know what's incorporated or not north of I-40 because I have no idea. I didn't have the chance to even consider that tonight. And that's why I think it would have been correct for deferral. But since it's for a full build out of a very expensive highway, again, that goes through a tiny portion of city incorporated land on its south side, and some very marginal land, city land, north of that, and on the west side of that whole north segment, it's county. It's primarily owned by Western Albuquerque Land Holdings, our dear friends who want to develop Santolina. And Councilor Sana's addition to this may be the best part of it in a sense, but I have no way of knowing. This bill was discussed at length at LUPS without Councilor Sana's amendment. And it really, by rights, if we're going to add that in, should go back to LUPS. I would support a small roadway of the type that Councilor Pena has discussed with me, that we just need to get people from one end to the other along here where they can get to some services. I'm all in favor of that. But the idea that this would become a citywide priority, I cannot support. I think it confuses the regional planning organization when we put things like this in there as a city priority. And you know, it's out of whack with what the need is right now. The need is to, I agree, is to get some relief for some of the folks in the low density, terribly built areas that were allowed to be platted in Westgate and in those areas. But I want to go back to the idea that the county commission did not support this as a countywide priority. It was supported as a, I believe it's a District 2, Councilor Quesada's priority, and not that of the entire county commission. And so, you know, this looks like it's going to go through. I'm going to go ahead and make an amendment right now. I propose an amendment, if there's a second, that this be called the priority of districts 1 and 3, city council districts 1 and 3, wherever it's mentioned as a citywide priority.
Counselor, you have a motion for an amendment. I'm looking for a second. Counselor Davis, is that a second? And we would need to hear this amendment as floor amendment number 2. And is the staff prepared for that? I'm looking at the staff here. Okay, so then I guess I'll allow that floor amendment. And could you repeat that again, Councilor Benton, for the staff's sake?
Yes, I mean, this would be every reference to a citywide priority would be changed to a priority of council districts 1 and 3.
Okay, so we have a motion for a floor amendment that makes this a priority of districts 1 and 3. And with that, I'm going to, there were a couple of people waiting in the wings to comment. So before we go to that, do your comments address this floor amendment or affect it? Councilor Bassan?
Thank you, Madam President. It goes with both, honestly. I just wanted to make my comment. Hearing this, I can respect and understand part of what Councilor Benton is saying about the gravity and the largeness of this proposal and this project, but I also struggle in that just because it's on the border of the city, that means that it doesn't mean that it's a citywide priority. And I struggle with that. I too have a bordering road that is right on the edge of the city, and I can see how that could become a problem someday later. And so as far as precedent, I mean, the city ends somewhere, but we still have a responsibility to those residents inside of the city that travel to and from and around. And so although it's big and although it's very detailed, I think that doesn't mean that they don't count. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Councilor Bassan. Councilor Pena, you have your hand up also.
Thank you, Madam President. My comments aren't related to the amendment, so I can speak after. Thank you.
We'll come back to you after that then, Councilor. Okay, with that, we will move on to a vote for a floor amendment. I'm going to call it a floor amendment because it came from the floor. Ms. Ortega for the vote.
Councilor Bassan?
No.
Councilor Benton?
Yes.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Councilor Gibson?
Yes.
Councilor Harris?
No.
Councilor Jones?
Yes.
Councilor Pena?
No.
Councilor Sena?
No.
Councilor Borrego?
No.
Motion fails on a 4-5 vote.
Okay, Councilors, so that motion fails. That floor amendment dies. We will go back to the original bill, and I will go to Councilor Pena. Councilor Pena?
Thank you, Madam President. I don't know if this is for the close or is there other discussion?
There's not any other hands up, so I think it's for the close.
Okay. Thank you, Madam President. You know, I respect what Councilor Benton is saying as well. If you read many of the whereases in here, it really talks about, how this community has been so underserved for these years. When you talk about building a small roadway to serve this community, if you look at Coors Road, it's kind of that small roadway that's still that small roadway that doesn't have some of the basic infrastructure in terms of the sidewalks and curb and gutter and drainage that other areas of the city have. My mom was just telling me the other day that she remembers Coors Road when it was around, and some of the infrastructure at that time, people wanted to get done. And if you look at the time of Coors, she was saying that I think it was Wyoming is the road that she described, was actually a dirt road, and it used to have humps all through it when you drove up and down on Wyoming. And she said the nickname of that road was Kiss Me Quick because of the dips in the road. And, and you look at Wyoming now, when you look at the infrastructure and how nicely that road is over the years and how it's been redone over the years, and that Coors Road is still kind of that small road that we kind of patched along just to kind of serve a community to get them in and out. And now, we have this opportunity to say, we're going to do it right. And the money, we're not anticipating that the money's going to come in or that anything's going to change priorities that are there. But if there's opportunity for monies with this huge infrastructure plan, then absolutely we want to seek those dollars and make sure that we get this road right. And when you talk about Santolina, it's really unfortunate that is used as a boogeyman. When, you look at our area of the city, and that area, when you look at the Wall property and you look to the north, all that is part of the same Wall property that's getting developed as we speak today. And yet we have this area that people are looking to into the future, and it's used as a boogeyman. And really, that just goes to further put communities like mine at a disadvantage. So, I look forward to the conversation of how we move forward. If you read one of the whereases on line 16, Atrisco Heritage Academy, which is the third largest enrollment in the region behind only main campus of University of New Mexico and Central New Mexico Community College, which is located at 118th, is the only street that links between the neighborhoods. I mean, that is the third largest enrollment in the region. And that's borders the city. I mean, it's the end of the city limits. There's no other opportunity to build a large scale school like that other than as we grow. And as you know, we have a situation now where we have a tremendous housing imbalance. And I know the priority for the city in terms of our what I like to call is a form-based code. The west side of Albuquerque deserves to have the development done correctly on our side of town as well. So with that, I'll just urge your support.
Thank you, Councilor Pena. We'll consider that a close. We will move to Ms. Ortega for the vote on a floor substitute R182.
Councilor Bassan.
As amended. Sorry.
Yes.
Councilor Benton.
No.
Councilor Davis.
No.
Councilor Gibson.
Regrettably, no.
Councilor Harris.
Yes.
Councilor Jones.
No.
Councilor Pena.
Yes.
Councilor Sena.
Yes.
Councilor Borrego.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-4.
Thank you, councilors. That motion passes 5-4. I just want to make a comment regarding this particular item because I was waiting to see if it passed or not. But, as this moves forward, it also needs to go to Mr. Cog and probably DOT. So there are a lot of, additional sort of checks and balances with regard to this because, we're recommending it as a priority, but they also have processes in place that will determine whether or not funding is appropriate for this area. So I just wanted to mention that because that, Councilor Pena, was one of my concerns earlier today, and I looked into that, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that as the vice chair of the Transportation Committee. So thank you for that. We will move on, councilors, to item number C, which is Councilor Sena, and this is R204. Councilor Sena.
Thank you, Madam President. R204 is approving the Transit Department's 2021 updated Public Transit Agency Safety Plan. I move a do pass.
Thank you, Counselor Sena. I think Counselor Pena, was that a second? Counselor Bassan. Remind counselors to use your hand raise feature. I am just going to tell counselors that I am like the Zoom queen because I've never actually had an in-person council meeting during my tenure as president. So next month I expect some special little recognition from you all regarding that. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Is Counselor Pena, or I'm sorry, Counselor Sena, is the administration speaking regarding this item?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I was just going to call on the administration to give brief remarks regarding the safety plan.
So who is here to speak? Mr. Director Lotta? Or budget conference room, it looks like.
Good afternoon, Madam President and Councilors. I'm Stephanie Dominguez, Deputy Director for the Transit Department. So this plan is required by the FTA. We do a yearly review. Last year was the first year that we approved the safety plan. And so what it does is it provides the framework for approaching safety. It sets our performance targets, establishes policy such as the communication plan. It outlines our risk management process. What we do is we do hazard identification, risk assessment, risk mitigation. We set performance targets. We monitor and measure those targets. And finally, the final component of this plan is compliance and training. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Dominguez. Are there any questions for Ms. Dominguez? It does not appear so. So I will come back to Counselor Sena.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to note, I did get to watch some of the training as well, at least some of the video, especially on de-escalation and some of the progress that we've made, and just want to recognize transit and say thank you for everyone's hard work on this, that I know that a lot of time was spent on this as well. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to follow up, and I would like at our next meeting, a little report on where we are with regard to transit drivers. So I'm just going to put that out on the table for now. So we have a motion and we have a second, and I don't see any other hands raised in the queue. So we will go to Ms. Ortega. Ms. Ortega.
Counselor Bassan.
Yes.
Counselor Benton.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
Counselor Gibson.
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor Pena.
Yes.
Counselor Sena.
Yes.
Counselor Borrego.
Yes.
9-0 on R204.
Thank you, counselors. That concludes R204 with passing of a 9-0 vote. We will move on to item number D. Counselor Gibson, R208. Counselor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. I move a passage for R208, encouraging the city of Albuquerque to complete the funding for the renovation of Los Altos Park, adding a facility to house a security patrol vehicle to the scope of the park renovation, prohibiting the sale of alcohol at Los Altos Park, funding a feasibility study and design analysis report to construct a footpath around the perimeter of Los Altos Golf Course. And I am moving a do pass.
Thank you, Counselor Gibson. It appears that we have a second from Counselor Jones. Is that a second, Counselor Jones?
Yes, Madam President.
Thank you. Okay,
Madam
so
President,
with that, it appears, Counselor Gibson, we have two amendments.
Yes, Madam President. I would also like to see, I think this is the first one that we put. I guess floor amendment 1 then would be on page 3, delete section 2 or lines 3, 4, and 5, and insert in lieu thereof a new section 2 as follows. Section 2, the scope of the Los Altos Park renovations is expanded to include an indoor storage structure for a security cart or mobile vehicle with an appropriate electrical outlet for recharging the vehicle. The structure shall be part of or located within 50 feet of the central security and community room building that will be constructed as part of the Los Altos renovations project.
Thank you, Counselor Gibson. I will second that floor amendment number 1.
And I would, if I may,
go ahead,
Madam President, just offer an explanation, which is an objective of the renovations of this park is improving the security infrastructure to mitigate increasing security risks at Los Altos Park. The amendment replaces the existing Section 2 of the resolution that supports improving security by ensuring that the location of the garage and recharging station for the security cart or any mobile vehicle to be used by security shall be within 50 feet of the security office and community room building. And that'll be constructed as part of the park's renovations. Locating this vehicle at or within a few seconds walk of the security office improves the efficiency of the park security personnel to respond to incidents and improves their ability to patrol the park. And if I may add, this park is one of the bigger parks in Albuquerque. It might be the biggest one, or at least one of the biggest ones. I believe it's 33 or 34 acres. This council, and with the mayor's signature, approved the budget this past spring, which provided funding for 2 full-time security guards, as well as other security money for all parks. But it's not easy to jump around agilely or quickly around 33, 34 acres. So we need to have a vehicle for them, and that vehicle needs to be stored there where they will be spending the most of their time, their main headquarters. And that was the original intent. That was the original intent of this building, is to support security for the park. And it's been the mayor's desire to have a concessions place in the park. So what this amendment says is, okay, well, we understand we got kicked out of the building, but we hope that that this resolution will be passed so that the vehicle can be securely stored and also be in an area, in a room where the recharging can occur. So that's what this is about. And I don't know if there are any questions or any comments from anyone.
I don't see any questions.
Madam President,
Who is speaking, please? Identify yourself.
this is Lawrence Royale, Madam President.
Mr. Royale, go ahead.
Madam President and Councilor Gibson, and obviously, and members of the council, just so that we can maybe at least have some clarity. We've talked to Councilor Gibson about this issue a couple of occasions, and I just want the council to know we are ready to bid this project within the next 3 weeks. Number one. Number two is that we've agreed that with Councilor Gibson that we do need to have a facility for this electric cart, if that is ultimately, it could also be a gas powered cart, but nonetheless, if this electric cart is to be purchased, and we've agreed that we would find an appropriate location on the park so that the security guards can have the ability to get to the entire park. And so we don't have a disagreement at all on that. I think the only issue here is that adding this at this late hour of the process is just going to delay our ability to bid and move in the construction of the park. And so we've offered on that we would obviously look for an appropriate location to have this, if you will, this cart facility built. It may be in a facility that's more centrally located so they can get to the entire park. So we don't have a disagreement on the security piece. I think the only issue we have is that this is really going beyond what we normally do with projects, where we now are going to have resolutions about where facilities go. And I realize that Councilor Gibson, you'd like to see that facility next to the new facility that's being built. But we also have the bicycle facility, if you will, the pump track that's going to be completely on the other side of this facility. And it just seems to us that it makes more sense to have that security office more centrally located in the middle of the park, where they have access to the already built pool, to the pump track that will be to the west of that, to the Rose Garden that's to the north, and obviously then to the new part, the baseball fields that are to the east. So we don't have a problem with the idea and the concept. It's just putting it in at this late hour and doing it through a resolution just doesn't seem to be appropriate. So we just wanted to make sure that you all knew that we're prepared to do this. It just seems that at this point, it's going to add cost to the project. And we're so far in the design that we would love to be able to accommodate it at a different location.
Thank you, Mr. Rael. Councilor Benton?
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question for Mr. Rael. Is there any reason why, because you talk about the schedule for bidding the project, which obviously, boy, when we get close to bidding a project, I like to see it going forward because it's usually after a long, long process. So I understand that. But is there any reason why this couldn't be just put into the final bid document as either an alternate or just be considered a change order, that once it's city policy that it will be a change order to the contract and it doesn't have to hold up the bidding or anything like that? That was my question. Just had procedurally with regard to the bidding, would this specific amendment really affect that?
Madam President, Councilor Benton, no, we'd be happy to put it on as an added alternate or as a part of the bid, as an amendment. The challenge really is more, where should it be located? And, I get the idea that it needs to be close to the fields, but we also are going to make significant investments on the west side of the park. By putting this closer to the baseball fields, now the security guards have to go a lot further to get to the Rose Garden area, to the swimming pool, and even to the pump track that will be built on the east side. And so the recommendation from the staff was that we put it somewhere where it's more centrally located in the park so that the security guards have access from a central location in the park. This puts it closer to the east side. And so, but your point, Councilor Benton, no, we could add it on as an alternative. Just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to micromanage all of these projects like we are with this one.
Yeah, well, I realize it could be seen that way, but I think I don't want to speak for Councilor Gibson, but it seems to me this is just a shelter and a place to plug it in and recharge the batteries if it's electric, and to protect it from weather. It's more of a marker that we want to have this vehicle and that it makes sense and it's important to us. And, it probably doesn't mean that the security folks are just going to be there and then they leave from there. I mean, it would probably just be the place where it's parked at night and plugged in. That's my understanding, but I'll leave it to Councilor Gibson. I just wanted to, that's been my understanding about what it was.
Thank you, Councilor. We're going to go back to Councilor Gibson. Looks like she's contemplating some thoughts.
So thank you, Madam President. So this building, concept of this building very originally came from the softball players. and the teams, and they needed a place to, gather and do scheduling or, do game strategy, whatever they do. And at the same time, we realized that we needed to have a central place, home base for security. And that's why it's in this building. It's exactly why. It's not just to service the baseball diamonds, of course not, but it's pretty close to the middle of the park. Now, you're right, there is a pump track that's going to be located at the far west end of the park. But the building was designed specifically for security and meeting rooms. Also, we have a number of restrooms. There's also a restroom that will be accessible from the outdoors directly into the bathroom area. And that was intended to be in a place that would be easily visible from the security office. So that's why the security office is placed where it is. So now if we're going to take out the security office and put it in the building over by the swimming pool, that totally changes everything. I will also remind you that the whole idea of the concession stand really or concession room rather, really came in the 11th hour of this design. So that's why, we forfeited a storage room or a little garage area for the concession area. So here's the deal. The long and the short of it is this. We are trying to turn around this park, and having security and all the amenities that we need, the lighting, the fencing, the electric security cart, all of those things are what is going to help people place their trust in this park again. So, and you're going to hear the same comments from me on our second amendment, but it's the way the drawing is now. There is an outlet to plug the cart in on the side of the building, but that is like around the corner in a long way. Well, it's just not visible by the security office. That's not good, because somebody will figure out how to take it off with it or vandalize it. And that's just the opposite of what we're trying to achieve in building confidence and security in the park.
Any other comments? Mr. Rael? No?
So that may be my close.
Madam President.
Oh, maybe not.
No, it's okay. Madam President and Councilor Gibson, look, like I said, we don't disagree with the idea of having a cart or having a security program in place. And, as I said, maybe we do, as suggested by Councilor Benton, an alternative so that when we bid this out, we can move forward in getting the park renovated. It's been under, as you know, it's under construction, and the longer we wait for this, the longer it's going to take to open it. So we're receptive to having a facility of this size for the cart. So I don't, and look, we're really micromanaging this. It's really not that big of a deal. However, I guess the only concern I have at the end of the day is having a facility that's centrally located would make more sense for the entire park. But if it's the council's wishes that we have this facility located where Councilor Gibson would like, we'll bid that out for the construction of the project in 3 weeks. And then we will do an alternate because it's not been designed and design it and add it on as an add-on. But it can't be done right away because we actually are 90% on the drawings already. this would delay the project for another 2 months. And that's our dilemma.
Okay, Madam President, if I may.
Go ahead, Counselor.
Respond to that. So it is centrally located. It is right now. It is right on the what they're calling the spine. So, you know, we don't have to move that. We designed this building specifically so that whoever is on the job, any security people who are on the job, will be able to have a direct line of sight to the restroom that's accessible only by the outside. One restroom. Again, it doesn't make any sense to park their cart 700 feet away or whatever that was. I think it was 700 feet. And I'm not trying to talk you out of the concession stand, although we will be, by the way, competing with food trucks and the fast food places on Eubank. But I'm giving in for that. If you want the concession stand, that's cool. I won't, I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying that should, you know, if we do that, then we need to do something else to keep the cart close to the security office, keep the security office where it is, where it's always been intended to be.
And Madam President, Councilor Gibson, I appreciate that. And we want to work with you to get it where you need it to be. I just want to make sure that you know that where we are in the process, we've had this all designed and ready to go. And I know you're as eager to get started as all the councilors and the mayor are to get the project going forward. We will commit to you that we will add a building to the current facility as it's being built to house the golf cart. And so we appreciate it.
Great. And it was already designed when you decided you wanted the concession stand. So, you know, it's both of us. It's you, it's, you know, your desire as well as mine. But I'm fine with that. So I think we can move forward on this resolution, but I do have one more amendment. I guess we have to vote on this one first.
So, Counselor, are you moving forward with this amendment or not? I'm a little confused. What you want to do?
I think we're moving forward on it so that, you know, it will be in the resolution. And it sounds like the administration is amenable to that.
Madam President and Councilor Gibson, look, like I said before, we're amenable to doing this. We just want to make sure we can get the project bid immediately as we are planned, and then do the design for the additional piece as we move forward with the project. If you're okay with that, then we're okay. And you and I can go to therapy afterwards and agree to sing Kumbaya together.
But what you're recommending here is not, doesn't conflict with this amendment, is what I'm hearing. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, that's right.
Okay, good. Let's vote on the amendment then.
Okay, Counselor Harris has a comment, Counselor Gibson, and then we will go to a vote. Counselor Harris. Counselor Harris, can you unmute?
Yes, now, yeah, because I thought Mr. Real was really saying he'd like to do this administratively, not legislatively.
That's what I thought also, Counselor Harris.
Yeah,
that's why I was confused about what
yeah,
we were
so
doing.
I mean, Mr. Real, would you like to do this administratively or legislatively? Would you want this amendment? Yes.
Councilor Harris and members of the council, look, amending projects like this legislatively is not the way that we should be doing business. I would prefer to have this done legislatively. It appears, administratively, pardon me. But I know that Councilor Gibson has been concerned about this issue for some time. In the essence of trying to get this thing resolved and move forward, I'm happy to defer to the council's wishes.
And if I may, Madam President?
Go ahead, Counselor.
I've never gotten in the weeds on a project like this. I show up at groundbreakings and I compliment the city staff for building such a beautiful building, building such a beautiful park. And I often say things like, thank God they don't let me design buildings. Thank God they don't let me drive bulldozers and things like that. I just think for me, this is a little bit too much micromanagement of something which I perceive as an administrative function.
Thank you, Councilor Harris. All right, with that, councilors, we're going to go ahead and vote on this to decide whether we should move forward with it or not. Ms. Ortega.
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
No.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
No.
Counselor Sena,
No.
Counselor Borrego.
No.
Motion passes on a 5-4 vote on Amendment 1.
Thank you, councilors. So let's clear direction. Counselor Gibson, you have floor amendment number 2.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And I am so sorry. My battery just died on my iPad.
We have
Is
it up
there-
on the screen, Counselor.
Oh,
can you see it?
Thank you. Thank you. So this will be floor amendment number 2 then. Number 1, amend the title as follows: encouraging the city of Albuquerque to complete the funding for the renovation of Los Altos Park, adding a facility to house a security patrol vehicle to the scope of the park renovation, prohibiting and deleting prohibiting the sale of alcohol at Los Altos Park, and removing Los Altos Parks from the list of parks where public alcohol consumption is permitted. Funding a feasibility study and designing analysis report to construct a footpath around the perimeter of Los Altos Golf Course. And then next is on page 3, line 6, section 3 is replaced as follows. Section 3, removing, it shall be the policy of the city of Albuquerque that alcohol and sales are banned within the boundaries of Los Altos Park, adding section 6-5-2 of the Albuquerque Code of Resolution is amended as follows. Section 6-5-2, public areas where public drinking alcohol is permitted, A, for the purpose of the provisions contained in the criminal code relating to drinking in public, the consumption of alcohol liquors, removing alcohol beverages, as that term is defined in section 13-2-2 ROA 1994 is prohibited in all city parks except for the following public park and the recreation areas designated as those where the consumption of alcoholic beverages is permitted. Then paragraph 1 is deleted, Los Altos Park, but only between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. except that no consumption of alcohol beverages will be allowed in the swimming pool and skate park areas. So that's what's coming out. And this is rather long. It's pretty much does what the explanation talks about. Madam President, do you want me to continue to read to the end?
Madam, it's your amendment.
Okay.
I'm just letting you explain it.
All right. So anyway, it makes a number of changes all the way through paragraphs 14 and 15. And then let's see, it adds to the open space visitor center, including but not notwithstanding the provisions of subsection A above, alcohol beverages may be sold, served, or consumed at Civic Plaza or any park, open space, or other recreation location, and removing, including but not limited to Civic Plaza or any park hosting Summerfest, adding except for Los Altos Park, during the special events under adding including but not limited to Summerfest, if specifically permitted pursuant to the terms of any special event permit, park use agreement, or other valid permit issued by the city. Alcoholic beverages may be sold, served, or consumed at such other municipal facilities except for Los Altos parks. And then in paragraph C, all developed public parks and recreation areas not designated in Division A above will be posted as not permitting the drinking of alcoholic beverages. Then part 2 on page 3, line 14, add section 5 as follows. Section 5, compilation. Section 3 of this resolution shall amend, be incorporated in, and made part of the City of Albuquerque Code of Resolutions. This explanation is the amendment amends the City Code of Resolutions to formalize the proposed policy against the sale or consumption of alcohol at Los Altos Park. So I'm sorry that didn't go a little more smoothly, but it is a long amendment. So our intent.
I'm looking to see if you have a second. I see Councilor Sena and Councilor Pena's hands up. Are those seconds or do you have comments? Those are not seconds. Councilor Sena? Is that a second?
I'll second for the purpose of conversation.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Sena.
So, Madam President, if it would be all right, we have Mr. Menacucci here who might be able to give us some a summary of that, a little more legible summary of that.
Actually, Madam President, Councilor Gibson, actually that was prepared, I believe, by Shanna Schultz, and she's coming on. If we could, I'd like to put it over here.
Thank you. Sorry.
Ms. Schultz.
Madam President, Councilor Gibson, yeah, I can provide kind of a brief overview of just what this amendment does. It addresses the kind of 3 ways that alcohol could be consumed at public facilities and parks. The first is kind of the BYOB method, where users could bring their own alcohol onto the premises to drink. The second relates to special event permits, where on a special event case basis, the city or an event organizer can get a special event permit to serve alcohol for a very limited amount of time in a very limited location on the site. And then the third relates to kind of a more permanent alcohol license for the site if the city or, again, another private operator wanted to kind of permanently sell alcohol on the site. This amendment makes all 3 of those not an option specifically for Los Altos Park. Councilors, I'd like to bring your attention to one thing in this amendment. There is a new line in this amendment from the time it was uploaded to your iPads. Councilor Gibson read it accurately. The one that Mr. Moya had up on the screen is the correct amendment, but there was a new line in subparagraph B that says, except for Los Altos Park. That is new since it was uploaded to your iPads, and that was something that staff missed when we were drafting the amendment. That would further the sponsor's intent to prohibit the city from seeking a permanent license to sell liquor on the site. The intention was in the explanation, but we missed that line in the text, so I just would like to bring that to your attention. With that, I can stand for any questions regarding the amendment.
Okay, Ms. Schultz, I'm just curious why this was not presented as 2 amendments, because it seems like we're talking about funding, but we're also talking about the alcohol consumption. So I'm just wondering, it just seems like a lot in one amendment.
Madam President, where in the amendment are you seeing the references to funding for the project?
Encouraging the city of Albuquerque to complete the funding for the renovation of Los Altos Park.
Madam President, thanks for that clarification. This amendment is required to amend the title of the bill. And so that first paragraph that talks about encouraging the city to complete the funding is within the title of the resolution itself. And because we have to amend the title to make it clearer the alcohol prohibitions that are proposed, the entire title had to be amended. So that first paragraph is just about the title and is not changing anything in the resolution related to funding.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So then with that, I will move on to people who have their hands up. Counselor, and I'm not sure what order your hands went up because I was reading the amendment. So I'm going to start with Counselor Pena, Counselor Davis, and then Counselor Sena.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess this is for our staff, Ms. Schultz. So just a quick question in terms of I'm just trying to recall what I remember about funding this under the lodger's tax. I think that's what it was funded under, correct?
Madam President, Councilor Pena, I am not sure about that. I might ask Mr. Minicucci or the sponsor if they have more details on that particular piece.
Madam President, if I may, yes, 10 million did come from lodger's tax. You're correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Madam President. So just wanted a couple of follow-up questions. So Ms. Schultz, so this amendment would actually allow for just special permitting of alcohol?
Madam President, Councilor Pena, it would not. That would be one of the types of alcohol, that kind of special event license that would be prohibited from this particular park.
Okay, so I just want to make sure because I was just reading it and I didn't read it well. So my brain is a little foggy. But with that, I just kind of was thinking today when this came up, I kind of recalled that it was a lodger's tax money. And I remember some of the projects that were requested and some of the logic behind and some of the debate against why some projects should go in and others shouldn't. And from my recollection is that we were putting this under the largest tax to promote tourism, and that we were going to we were having, these tournaments, but because of the condition of the park, because we needed additional fields, trying to remember some of the other things, that we weren't able to encourage the type of tournaments that we could if we redid it and put this 10 million and reinvest in the entire park and brought in tourism. So if that was the case originally as to why we did this, how does not allowing alcohol impact that? Because I would hate to see us investing all this money for all those reasons to bring tournaments from everywhere and make this beautiful park that's not going to be utilized in the way that it was intended to be utilized. Because, part of big, large events like that, oftentimes, people serve alcohol. And so if you can kind of help me to remember that, I mean, is that some of what was discussed initially?
I'm sorry. Is that a question for me or did you?
It's for whomever. I'm just trying to, flesh this out in my head because I'm just wondering that, just not allowing the alcohol, and I am 100% behind what community members' concerns are, but I guess the second prong to that, those comments are, have you talked to the people who would be hosting these? I mean, what kind of community outreach has been done in relation to this amendment outside of the neighbors, which are, paramount?
Right. What we have done is I talked with one person, one resident of, I can't remember the name of their neighborhood. They're not organized into a neighborhood association, unfortunately, but she's sort of the person who speaks on behalf of her neighbors when she calls my office. So I had a conversation with her. In fact, she was a public speaker that we heard from earlier, Sylvia. And then I reached out to, my office actually reached out to South Los Altos neighborhood. And that was pretty much it. They did invite me to talk with them at their board meeting, and I did that. So bottom line on this is that they're not comfortable. They're not comfortable with it. They have seen, and many of these people have lived in their homes for, 2 or 3 generations. Both the neighborhoods immediately north, on the north side of Lomas, as well as the South Los Altos neighborhood, have, been ignored a lot, and have had disinvestment around them. And their kids on the south side of I-40 use a pedestrian bridge to come over and go to the park. And they are less trusting in doing that anymore. The same is true for the neighborhoods northeast, north of Lomas and east of Ubank, which is actually outside of my district, but we've been hearing from them as well. They're telling me that they want to be able to use the park again. They want to have confidence and trust that they can send their kids over there to play, or they can, go watch ball games or partake of all of the other amenities that this park's going to have. And I'm really proud of this park and the design that we have had for it. And I think that we can achieve that. But serving alcohol or allowing alcohol in the park doesn't help in that. The other thing, let me just add this, and I'll stop talking and let everybody else talk. But I've been hearing for years from Northeast and Foothills in particular, maybe Southeast as well, all of those commands, both of those commands, that it's difficult sometimes for them to effectively police the park. So if they see somebody who's maybe sitting on the grass and drinking a beer or something like that, they would like to be able to go up and approach them and make sure that everything's okay, for example, and allowing that in the park doesn't give them that opportunity. So that's some of what I'm hearing, and I'm sure you got some of those emails as well this last week. So I'll stop now. Thank you.
So, Madam President, and if I could just follow up. So I guess what my question is that outside of the neighborhoods, when we were talking about this becoming a real tourist destination in terms of these bringing in these major tournaments, it seems as though from what you said, you haven't really spoken to those folks. So, I think it would behoove us to really make sure that we're not making this huge investment under the auspice of tourism, that we're forgetting to make sure that we've talked to the folks who would do that and how it would impact that into the future. So, I think just for the sake of time and additional input from the community, I'd like to make a motion to defer this until our next council meeting so that we can have an opportunity to talk to those folks.
So Councillor Gibson, the motion to defer does take precedence over the amendment. And I don't know if I have a second. It looks like I have a second from Councillor Sena. I I think Councilor Brooke Brisson, is that also a second?
Well, I'm not opposed to further discussing this. I still do have some questions, but at the same time, I mean, if we need to stop now and motion to defer, then I'll vote yes for deferral because I have more questions, but I was hoping to get them answered tonight as well.
Councilor Brisson, do you want to ask your question? Maybe we can get some answers.
Well,
I have a significant amount of questions regarding this bill myself, so.
Madam President, I believe with Councilor Pena's motion, that truly takes precedent if I'm not incorrect.
Okay, so what we can do is we can go ahead and take the vote on the deferral, and then we can raise those questions and maybe we can get some answers. And I'm looking at a deferral until our next meeting. That would maybe give us some time, give Councilor Gibson some time to meet with the administration, give all of us some time to get some of our questions answered. So I'm going to go ahead and allow the motion to defer and take the vote on that. And then we can come back and put some of those questions on the table before we move on to our next item.
Councilor Bassan,
Yes.
Councilor Benton,
No.
Councilor Davis,
No.
Councilor Gibson,
No.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Councilor Jones,
No.
Councilor Pena,
Yes.
Councilor Sena,
Yes.
Councilor Borrego.
Yes.
Motion to defer to December 6th passes on a 5-4 vote.
Okay, thank you, counselors. So I'm going to go ahead and come back to, and we did have one person that was waiting to speak. And I apologize to that person. I should have asked for their comments early on. Maybe they can come back at our next meeting. Let's see, Councilor Bassan, and then I think Councilor Sena had her hand up also. So let's go ahead and go to those questions.
Madam President, I guess since we've now deferred, I will just try to do the work on the back end and ask them at the next meeting if we don't already have them resolved by then.
And I would encourage the administration to meet with our counselors who do have questions, because I think it's important that we get some answers before our next meeting as well. Councilor Sena?
Thank you, Madam President. Pretty much similar to Councilor Bassan, and I will certainly also follow up with Councilor Gibson on my particular questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sena. Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to note something, a good argument that I heard that was made, but I have a different perspective on it. That if, you know, when this park is renovated, we're going to have spent, I guess I should say, over $30 million. This is, you know, this is a major renovation for the city of Albuquerque. And our point in doing this is to reactivate this park, to bring people in and start using the park and riding their bikes and watching games and playing horseshoes and using the pump track, all of those things in the garden park, the garden center as well. Allowing alcohol in this park is just the opposite, is going to have the opposite effect on that, because that was made very clear in all of the messaging that I've been getting from the people who live around the park. They're already, their neighborhoods are already underserved. I am trying to help them, have a really beautiful park and a safe and secure place for them to recreate. And alcohol is not part of that equation. So as far as people who will be putting this on, I'm sure some of them will be unhappy. I'm sure those will be some of the responses that we get. But it's more important, I think, for all of us to protect our investment. Number one, protect the city's investment in having a park that is going to feel secure for its users. And that should be paramount. That should be much more important than whether or not someone is going to be able to have a beer at the park. So anyway, thank you for that. Thanks for the vote.
Thank you for the close, Councilor Gibson, and just a couple of my questions regarding the park status. And I would like to talk with Parks a little more regarding the type of park that this is actually falls under. Is it a neighborhood park? Is it a regional park? You know, I mean, I guess these are questions in my mind that I'd like to have somebody call me and talk with me a little bit more about. As I mean, a 34-acre park is much different than a 5-acre park, obviously, and the kinds of uses that are going to be allowed in this particular park are not typical uses, especially when you have a BMX park or our BMX park that is currently operating, moving to this particular area. So I really want to have a discussion either with Parks or the administration or someone regarding that, because I think Councilor Pena raised some questions about what is allowed within a regional park, such as, our stadium, our Rio Grande Credit Union Stadium, and our, a small park like Petroglyph Park. So I just want to know the differences of designation and how the city defines those. And if somebody could get with me, I would appreciate that before our next meeting.
Madam President, members of the council, Mr. Simon or I will be more than happy to sit with all of you and talk to you as individually about the park, et cetera, and answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councilors. With that, we're going to go ahead and move on from this item. And we are going to move on to item number F. Councilor Pena, R212.
Thank you, Madam President. R212 is amending the adopted capital implementation program of the city of Albuquerque by approving new projects, supplementing current appropriations, and changing the scope of existing projects. And I move a do pass.
Thank you, Councilor Pena. I'll second that. I see a second from Councilor Sena as well. And it appears that I have at least 4 amendments sitting in front of me, or maybe 5. I think 4. And I'm not sure what particular order. Are these in the correct order? No. Okay, so I'm going to go. It looks like we have several different counselors that are sponsoring these. I'll start with Councilor Pena, since this is your bill, Councilor Pena, and then we're going to move on to Councilor Benton, and then I have an amendment as well.
Thank you, Madam President. I think this is actually the only one I have, and it's correcting an error. So this is would be floor amendment number 1. And this is on page 7, line 31, insert the following section 5, following amount hereby appropriated to the following fund and program for fiscal year 2022. General Fund 110, city support, transferred to capital acquisition, $11.7 million. And the explanation for this is it's fixing a clerical error related to the fall cleanup bill. Section 5 was excluded from the legislation. The amount of 11.7 million is from the correction of the gross receipts revenue from the state that the state owed to the city. I move a do pass.
Thank you, Councilor. Is that a second, Councilor Benton? Councilor Benton?
Madam Chair, I had my hand up for my amendment, so I apologize. I'll take it now.
Okay, so Counselor Senna, is that a second? Counselor Senna, second. Any questions, counselors? If not, we will move to Ms. Ortega for the vote on floor amendment number 1.
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Senna,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0 on Amendment 1.
Thank you, counselors. We will move to floor amendment number 2. Counselor Benton, you have number 2 and number 3.
I only have one here, but I'll read that one anyway, and then somebody else can read the other one. This would be the next amendment on page 3 after line 9, insert the following: streets interest minus 250,000. And then on page 3 after line 9, insert the following: Wells Park phase 2 interest 250,000. And this amendment designates bond interest and appropriates it to complete the funding for phase 2 of the Wells Park project, providing street lighting and infrastructure improvements for that neighborhood.
Thank you, Counselor Benton. Do I have a second? I have a second from Counselor Bassan, I think. Counselor Bassan? And she is nodding yes. Are there any questions regarding floor amendment number 2? I don't see any questions. Ms. Ortega.
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Senna,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
9-0 on Amendment 2.
And counselors, I just want to clarify, because Counselor Benton, when you read it, I think you combined item number 1 and number 2. So I just want to clarify it. It's on page 3, line 5, delete $500,000 and replace it with 824. Is that right? That's a different amendment. Okay, got it. Sorry, Counselor. So
Madam
we
Chair,
have,
the other
we
one,
have,
I
we have you as the
yeah.
sponsor for the second one as well. That's
Could
why.
someone else read that? So sorry for the confusion, but I didn't have it in front of me.
Okay, so yeah, I was a little confused myself. So let's go back just to be clear on the amendment that we just passed. Ms. Ortega, could you read it back into the record?
Sure. On page 3, after line 9, insert the following: streets interest 250,000 in paren. On page 3, after line 9, insert the following: Wells Park phase 2 interest 250,000.
Okay, thank you. So Counselor Benton, I have you listed on this additional amendment.
Yeah, Madam President, if they don't mind just putting that up there, I'll read it. I know what it is. I just didn't have it in front of me.
Okay, here it is, Counselor.
Thank you. So this would be amendment number 3, I believe. On page 3, line 5, delete 500,000, replace it with 832,824. On page 3, line 9, delete 500,000 and replace it with $820,000. On page 3, after line 9, insert the following: of this amount, 320,000 is designated for traffic signals at Lead Avenue and Walter and at Cole and Walter streets. And this amendment appropriates additional street bond interest for major infrastructure intersection reconstruction and designates it for the installation of these signals at Lead and Walter and Cole and Walter streets. And we passed an amendment in 2016 designating this. This is a longstanding project. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic and delays, of course, the costs have gone up, and this would completely fund the project as currently estimated.
Thank you, Counselor Benton. Do I have a second? Counselor Bassan, thank you for the second. Counselor Gibson as well. Any questions? I don't see any questions. We will move on to a vote. Ms. Ortega?
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena. Counselor
Yes.
Pena? Thank
Yes.
you. Counselor Sena?
Yes.
Counselor Borrego?
Yes.
9-0 on Amendment 3.
Thank you, counselors. That floor amendment also passes. I have one more amendment in this packet, and that is floor amendment number 4. It's up on the screen, and I am the sponsor on this particular amendment. On page 4, after line 21, insert the following. The transportation tax project listed adopted in resolution 20-47 is amended, and a new list adopted by this resolution is attached. That changes the termini for the project titled Paseo del Norte Calle Norteña to UNSER adopted citywide policy priority R 1884. The new project title will read as follows: Paseo del Norte Calle Norteña to the western city limits adopted citywide policy priority R 18-84. And basically what this amendment does is it requested by the administration extends the boundaries of the transportation tax project for building out Paseo del Norte from Calle Norteña to Rainbow and now extended to the western city limits. The project extension is to accommodate for commuter traffic from the industrial park located at Atrisco Vista Boulevard north of I-40. And as you know, councilors, we have Amazon, and there is an attached list on the back of this amendment for your understanding and viewing. So I have a second from Councilor Bassan, I believe. Thank you, Councilor Bassan. Are there any questions?
Madam President, I also have a question.
Councilor Bassan, go ahead.
Thank you. I just would like to clarify that the attachment, none of the values have changed on here. It's just amending the name on here, correct?
Mr. Menicucci?
Correct. Council President Borrego, Councilor Bassan, correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, councilors. So with that, we will move on to a vote for floor amendment number 4.
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego.
Yes.
9-0 on Amendment 4.
Thank you, councilors. We have 4 floor amendments that were unanimously approved to R 212. Counselor Pena.
Thank you, Madam President. That's the last of the amendments, correct?
Yes.
Okay, well, I urge your support on R 212.
Thank you, councilors. There are no further questions. We will move on to a vote. Ms. Ortega.
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego.
Yes.
9-0 on R212 as amended.
Thank you, councilors. R 212 as amended unanimously passes. We will move on to item number G. Counselor Davis.
President, we heard from some members of the public before, but to get us started tonight, I would move a do pass on R213. R213 declares a state of enforcement of the Albuquerque Tax Preparer and Consumer Rights Ordinance.
Thank you, Counselor. I think you have a second from Counselor Bassan.
I think so, yes.
Counselor Davis, did you want to move on to the administration?
If you will, Madam President, let me just detail why we're doing this very quickly, and then we have some experts available to answer questions if we need it. As this council remembers, during the last meeting of this last council last year, when I, at the end of my term as president, I sponsored this at the request of the administration in order to create our new taxpayer bill of rights, essentially, and a process to ensure that everyone understood their rights. But that was at our very last meeting in December, just before the tax season began. And it created, quite frankly, a lot of confusion. And through the process, we learned that, and I appreciate some in the administration working with us on this with stakeholders. We learned that a number of stakeholders, including tax preparers, a good number of them, were excluded from the process originally as stakeholders. And when they received their letter in the mail from the city saying, here's this new thing, we found that it was in conflict with a number of other provisions of law, including some federal tax registrations with enrolled agents. And the city had not set up a process for receiving and resolving complaints and addressing those. And so we went back to the drawing board this summer after tax season to try to address this. We brought the stakeholders in. There were quite a few contentious meetings. At this point, the administration has now presented a half dozen or so amendments that would change this legislation, and stakeholders have identified at least that many more. There's not yet a resolution on how to address those, including some that everyone agrees are unconstitutional, and there's still not a mechanism in place to adequately receive and resolve complaints in a way that everybody agrees is correct. My last point I'll say is, as we heard earlier tonight from some of the tax preparers, they don't oppose this. It's just that some of the city's information that we're sending out is outdated. It doesn't incorporate some of the new federal tax bills. We have a new tax bill, as we all know, that just passed, and the president literally or is being debated now in Congress. More importantly, it doesn't address some of the business tax concerns. But the big deal is that under the ordinance, tax preparers have to affirm and submit compliance to the city by December 15th. And we still haven't been able to get a meeting with the administration and stakeholders to resolve the administration's requested changes. And so we don't think it's feasible for this to happen this year. So we want a stay of enforcement. This is important. We understand that taxpayers have this right. We understand there's this concern. I share it, but we want to get it right. And it wasn't enforceable last year. It, in fact, had some real errors in it. And we're quite frankly just out of time this year to make it work right and provide notice to the public and to the folks doing this work. So that's my that's my soapbox and long way of saying we've been working on this since August. We've got some of these issues resolved, but to be honest, elections got in the way. Lots of folks wanted to get involved, and we're just out of time. And so it's not fair to have a law and the fact that we know we can't enforce, and to require tax preparers to give notice and information to clients that is outdated or incorrect. And so we're just not ready.
For the public's sake, could you just say how long the stay of enforcement is?
Yes, ma'am. It would be for 1 year. That would give us time after tax season is done to get back to the board and bring that back to the city council. I know the administration is available to speak, and I know we have some folks from the community and experts who can speak as well, Madam President. I'll defer to you how you want to address those.
Thank you so much, Councilor. Councilor Senna, do you have your hand up still? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to clarify, especially as it was brought up during public comment, as to the process of amendments that were being proposed to kind of meet the needs of both industry and community and those that advocate for consumer rights. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that, it has been sitting in Finance and Government Operations, and it was deferred, I believe, at the intent of the sponsor. And we did not have FGO this most recent time because we just could not meet quorum. I was out of town and was not here for both days on Monday and on Tuesday. It's one of the reasons why we didn't have public safety, because we also could not meet quorum because of just having counselors attend. And so those were really the first time I had ever missed committees. But I just want to make sure that that's really clear, that it was deferred, not because we didn't want to hear any of the amendments or the adjustments or have the discussions. And so I just want that on the record and to clarify what was stated at public comment.
Thank you, Councilor Senna. Councilor Davis? You're muted, Councilor Davis.
Thank you, ma'am. And just to make a correction for the record, to your question, the stay is actually until July 1st. So that gets us past the tax season and sort of gives everybody a deadline to get back at the table and working on this. And I agree with Councilor Sena in her role as chair. She did a great job of giving folks a forum for this, but we simply just ran out of time, and the meetings with the administration have taken longer than we anticipated.
Okay, so Councilor Davis, did you want us to hear from the administration?
Madam President, just to clarify, I was not serving as chair. I chair public safety, not FGO. Councilor Bassan chairs that.
Thanks. I defer to the president. I think this is a fairly easy thing, but if the administration wants to weigh in, I think that's fine.
Before we go to the administration and ask them if they want to weigh in, I just want to be clear, Councilor Davis, because today I had to go back and really, yesterday when I read this, and then I was thinking about the other bills that are on the table. Could you just mention those bills so that we're clear that there is this bill that is a stay of execution, and then there's the actual resolution bill, correct, that was already adopted. And then there is another bill that has come. So I'm trying to doing this for the public's sake, because I think it's important that people understand exactly what it is that we're doing here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam President. And I think you hit on exactly the reason why this is not ready for prime time. And if we had to pass this tonight, which is our last chance to do this, in order to get it in place before tax preparers would have to file their compliance and start notifying clients, we could keep you here all night. There are 14 amendments, I understand, between the administration and the industry that have not yet been worked out. And so the original ordinance itself was passed this time last year. There was originally a series of amendments that went to committee this year, basically as a new ordinance. There's now been a proposed committee substitute that would incorporate the amendments that have been agreed upon, but that has not yet been heard or incorporated in the committee. And there are half dozen other amendments that, quite frankly, everyone just simply disagrees on, including lawyers who don't agree whether the city has the jurisdiction to apply this to certain persons or not, like tax preparers and federal enrolled agents. So there's just too many open questions. And to your point, ma'am, there are 3 different pieces of legislation floating around about this. And I think the best answer is for us to put this back in our pocket for a year until we can get that sorted out.
So basically the stay of enforcement basically defers all of any action at all by the city on any of the bill, on the bill that was adopted and the bill that is pending. Is that correct?
No, ma'am, it would stay the enforcement on the bill that was adopted last year. If this council passes that tonight, it would be my intent to withdraw everything else that's left over because it's not resolved and no one agrees to it. And that would give us a framework to start over after tax season this coming year. But there's just too many things out there not ready yet.
Thank you. I thank you for that clarification. I think it's important that the public understands that, because I had to do a little chart of my own to figure it out. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to defer to the administration. You may or not have a comment on this, but if you do, this is your opportunity.
Yeah, we did meet, and what has happened is we met numerous times. We met with the industry, and we did come up with a compromise bill that we had set down and had introduced. After that was done, then the industry came and they started introducing amendments that we just wouldn't support. So that's what took so long. Wasn't that we didn't have time to meet with them, it was just that we couldn't come to a conclusion that what they were trying to do, what we were trying to do, would meet the needs of the community and the individuals we were trying to protect as consumers. So that's where we kind of ended up. And then we were ready to go during each one of the finance and government operation meetings when it was come up to be able to discuss the amendments that were on the floor there. But like I said, the bill continued to get deferred, and that's where we are now. We actually think that if we do this now, we have Marty here that can speak to it, that it would be confusing if you're trying to do a stay of a particular ordinance. We're already sending information out to tax preparers. We're starting to prepare for the tax season. So we think this would actually be more confusing for them. I'll let her go ahead and speak to that.
Sure. This is Mari Kempton in the Office of Consumer Protection with City Legal.
And like Isaac said, we've been preparing to implement this or implementing it since February. It was actually passed in February in the middle of tax season this year. So we've had the model forms up, the FAQs, the businesses have been contacted. We've already sent out the year-end certification forms, and a number of businesses have completed and returned those already. So it seems that it would be sort of confusing to stop enforcement right now when businesses have already been preparing to comply for this coming tax season, as well as what was heard at public comment about consumers having no protections going into this tax year.
Councillor Davis? Looks
Thank you,
like
Madam.
you have something to say.
I don't want to prolong it, Madam President. I don't disagree with the administration that there's more work to be done on this. I'm glad that they're sending things out and starting to get compliance, but the fact is that the bill is written. We agree that there are some structural changes that the administration themselves requested. Those are still pending in the committee. And yes, there are some things that everyone's agreed on, but the only way we can get this bill right before the deadline for tax preparers to implement this on December 15th is for this council to stay here till midnight and go through all these amendments and the committee sub and the whole 9 yards. And it's not even on the dais. We can't do it. We just can't. And again, I think it's a good idea. I think the city is leading in that we have a city tax preparer or taxpayers bill of rights. It remains in effect. We can receive and calculate and deal with the complaints that come in, so we have better data and more information if this is a legitimate concern for the administration. But we can't implement this bill because it's not workable in its current form. And the administration brought us a lengthy list of amendments that they wanted to make it workable, and it has not been able to pass. So I don't think we should repeat our error of last year in rushing to get this done because we're in a hurry and don't want to put our minds to how to make this work. So that I appreciate it. I have appreciated working with the administration on this. I don't doubt their commitment to this at all. But we're just out of time, and I don't want to be here till midnight.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, is that your close on this bill?
If there are no other questions, yes, ma'am, I would urge your support.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Then with that, we will move to Ms. Ortega for the vote. Oh, Councillor Bassan, I see or Councillor Gibson.
Yes, I'm
Your
sorry.
hand just went up.
I'm sorry, but thank you for recognizing me, Madam President. So I just want to be clear on this. If this piece is not successful, if it does not pass, the ordinance, tax prep ordinance remains on the books, remains active, but it's just like, it sounds like there's just not a way to enforce, and it's very, very flawed. Is that correct, Councillor Davis?
Councillor Davis, you're muted again.
Madam President, that's a great summation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. So I don't see any other hands up. So we will go to Ms. Ortega for a vote.
Councillor Bassan?
Yes.
Councillor Benton?
Yes.
Councillor Davis?
Yes.
Councillor Gibson?
No.
Councillor Harris?
I believe that Councillor Harris has left us for the evening.
Thank you. Councillor Jones?
Yes.
Councillor Pena?
Yes.
Councillor Sena?
No.
Councillor Borrego?
No.
Motion passes on a 5-3 vote.
Thank you, Councillors. That motion passes on a 5-3 vote. And that was item G on our agenda. We will move on to item H, Councillor Gibson, R216. Councillor Gibson.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Okay, R216 This is concerning the municipal runoff election to be held in the city of Albuquerque, New Mexico on Tuesday, the 7th day of December, 2021. I move it do pass.
I'll second that, Counselor. Any comments? Counselor Bassan?
Thank you, Madam President. I most definitely do not plan on voting against this, but I am curious, what happens if something like this were to fail? I mean, other than potential catastrophe.
Very good question, Counselor. I'll turn to our attorney.
Madam President, Councilor Bassan. So the city charter contemplates, I think as we all know, that in the event that a candidate does not exceed 50% in the regular municipal election, that a runoff is required in order to authorize an election in the city, any type of election. The governing body must authorize that election. I think it's a little bit maybe concerning to think about what would happen if the council didn't authorize such an election in the past, when by operation of the charter, the city council is required to take action to, for example, put something on the ballot. Various parties have taken the city to court, and in one instance, the New Mexico Supreme Court actually ordered that a question go on the ballot when the city council sort of neglected to do its obligation in authorizing the election. So that's sort of the parade of issues that could result in the event that the city council doesn't do what's called for in the charter.
Thank you, Mr. Melendrez. As always, you're a wealth of knowledge.
And I also see our city clerk, Ethan Watson, in the queue. Mr. Watson, did you want to weigh in?
I won't weigh in on the thank you, Madam President. I won't weigh in on the hypotheticals, but I do. I'm happy to just offer a little bit on this resolution. This is required by the charter. The council has previously designated December 7th as the runoff date, and we have worked with the county clerk to address the dates and times for early voting, working backwards from there. This resolution just designates the candidates who will be participating in the runoff. It's a strange provision of the charter, but we've brought the resolution before the council as required by the charter.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. We appreciate your work. Councilors, are there any other questions regarding this? I don't see any other questions. Councilor Gibson to close.
I urge your support.
Thank you, Councilor Gibson. Ms. Ortega.
Councilor Bassan.
Yes.
Councilor Benton.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Gibson.
Yes.
Councilor Harris. Excused. Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Councilor Pena.
Yes.
Councilor Sena.
Yes.
Councilor Borrego.
Yes.
8-0 on R216.
Thank you, councilors. That passes on an 8-0 vote. That was R216. There is no further business to come before the city council, and therefore it is adjourned. Have a wonderful evening.